I say, some of us sleep better after a cup of coffee.
It's crazy.
Sleep like a baby all night long. Wake up refreshed.
Calms the brain.
I'm not sure that's what it does.
You know, if you have ADHD, they give you stimulants to focus.
That's true.
Yeah, that's good. It was lately a time.
Focus is the opposite of sleep.
No, but it keeps your brain from spinning around and doing crazy stuff.
I suppose that's true.
I tried that for a while before I just started drinking coffee every day.
So what kind of coffee do you drink?
I prefer unflavored house roast. There's a little bit of milk in this. Milk or sugar, but not both.
Interesting.
Light roast, pour over.
Fancy.
Drip. My biggest pet peeve right now is the machines that do that basically brew it per cup.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of Keurig machines, and I don't think those you don't get the same flavor spectrum and output when
Not to mention the waste.
brew it right quick. Yeah. Well, I mean the machines that they have at gas stations now,
Oh yeah.
they actually use real beans. It's just that the brewing process
Those
is
ones, yeah.
instant, and
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan.
Instant without quite being an espresso.
Right. The espresso ones actually turn out better than the
Yeah.
coffee, but yeah.
Zone coffee brewing. Let's zone coffee
Coffee
brewing
grinding?
and only allow certain types of brewing of coffee in coffee shops.
Put it into zoning.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea.
You may not serve such an industrial type.
All coffee must be drip brewed or French pressed. No instant coffee. Alec, how you doing? Good to see you.
Yeah.
And you're doing PBTV?
We've got Dan tonight too.
Helping out.
Ready to click here?
I think our clock is on bar time. No, I guess
All
we're
right,
right.
at 6:30 p.m. I will call this meeting to order. Who do we have here tonight? We'll start with a roll call of members. Matt Yett and myself present. Susan Wood,
Here.
John Christ,
Here.
Phil Lamoureux here. Michael Bouchard is excused tonight. Molly McCann,
Here.
Neil MacGyver,
Present.
and alternate Bradford Puffer.
Yep.
Excellent, thank you very much. And we'll start with a review of the minutes from our meeting from June 19th.
I'm not sure we're voting on anything. Do you want to see Brad?
Oh yeah. You think I should do that?
I'm not sure it really matters tonight.
Even for voting on minutes, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
If he's here, we should seat him.
Perfect. Brad, would you like to be seated as a voting member tonight? Yeah, sure. All right, excellent. We will seat Bradford as a voting member. Thank you very much for the suggestion, gentlemen.
We've all been there.
First things first, I am listed as absent, but I was there.
Maybe tardy, but
I
present.
was a bit tardy, yes. It's true. But I was present.
It's true.
My name does show up later. Also on page 3, the third full paragraph down. More than halfway down it says, McCann adds a note that the typography of Tenny Mountain, but it should be topography.
Was that a typo?
Yeah.
Potentially.
It was a topo.
It was not a topo.
Good meeting.
It was too flat to be a topo.
Tenny Mountain's typography.
These are getting bad.
Hi there.
These have to go into minutes.
What is that?
These have to go into minutes.
Yeah, I think
These jokes.
the minutes should reflect the humor that's happening right now.
Humor.
Humor was used throughout.
I will be very disappointed if specific humor was not.
Humor in
Have
quotes.
some, have
It's
the
very
zingers in there.
odorous. I'll make a note of this.
I move we approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
Excellent. If there's no further discussion, all in favor of approving the minutes as amended?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And abstentions? Thank you very much. The minutes are approved as amended. Joseph, do we have any communications received?
Yeah, there are a few communications. A couple of them are more extensive, and at the board's discretion, I can save them for a little bit later or cover them now. Really up to the board. I'll start with the two that aren't the really long one that's included in the stack up here. The first one would be an update with regards to the Mid-State Downtown Cross-Access Easement, which was, as the board may recall, in 2022, as a condition of approval for a site plan review for a change of use, what was formerly the Community Guarantee Savings Bank, then Bank of New Hampshire, was being converted to a medical center with the associated parking next door. As a part of that approval, the planning board placed a condition that the applicant provide a cross-access easement to the town across that upper parking lot accessed from Gold Terrace. This was actually a follow-up or a closing out of an item that was a condition of approval back in 2006, which was when Gold Terrace was discontinued. It used to go down to Main Street. Now it stops halfway through. That was abandoned, and the property was made available for the bank. And then as a sort of way to make up for some of that lost connectivity and as a way to start thinking about potentially some other parking options along that natural shelf in between Russell Street and Main Street, there was a request made that the town be provided with a cross-access easement. So come 2022, the planning board put that as a condition. Now we're more or less there. The applicant has, after some discussion back and forth, provided the town with text and a plan that meet the town attorney's specifications for an easement. Now the process would go to the select board, and I plan to bring this to them at their next meeting on the 28th to make a recommendation that they schedule 2 public hearings on this, because under the RSA, the applicable RSA, which is 41:14A, the select board does need to hold 2 public hearings to consider accepting an easement, and first needs the review by the Planning Board and Conservation Commission. The Planning Board, of course, did review this previously. The Conservation Commission has also been made aware, and Ted advised that they took a look at this and recommended in favor. So the next step, I'll be suggesting to the Select Board that they schedule those hearings, and that would allow them to accept the easement on behalf of the town, closing out that sort of, we'll call it the big outstanding condition there, really, of the 2022 approval, but also closing out this kind of open item for about 19 years. So that'll be good to get that one off the books and kind of wrapped up. Obviously, the select board will have discretion after those hearings to make the decision on acceptance, but that certainly was the feeling of the planning board at the time in 2022, was recommending that it be provided to the town. And then the other quick communication, folks on the board, folks in the public, zoning board may be aware that there has been some significant work underway on the Loon Lake Road culvert replacement project, replacing what was a 60-inch corrugated metal pipe culvert with a, I want to say a 10-foot, no, I don't remember, don't quote me on the numbers.
Box culvert.
It's a very large box culvert with
Concrete.
open bottom that basically replicates the natural stream bed underneath, large enough to meet the hydraulic flow demands through that, which the pipe was not. It also really will loosen up the flow of that stream, allowing fish to pass back and forth. And I mention this because that is a specific master plan recommendation, replacement of that culvert and it's also in the town's hazard mitigation plan. So from a planning board perspective, that is an item that is being completed, and that was made possible. All of the engineering and construction funding was provided to the town through a grant from New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, with no match required, which is quite rare. So we're lucky to have that funding, and the project is well underway. Rough estimate, obviously these things are never quite set in stone, but probably a couple more weeks, and that might be expected to be ready to go. And
Great.
yeah, the last update has to do with several changes to state law that
Yep.
just went into effect that I can go through each one in more detail, but I don't want to take up
We
too
can
much
hold off
time.
on that, I think, and then if everybody's fine with it, we can sort of switch gears momentarily to a joint meeting with the ZBA. It looks like we have a quorum present now, so we can hold off on that if everyone's comfortable with that, and presume after our meeting with the ZBA.
Well, thank you.
Excellent, welcome.
Thank you for inviting us. And Joseph for inviting me.
Yes, thank you. Would do you guys want to seat at the table, stay in the seats there? What works best? Okay.
Far enough away so I can't get hit.
As long as we meet the requirements for your video,
Oh, yeah,
right,
we,
do we?
back of the head.
I think we do.
Yeah, as long as if we can do a quick roll call for the zoning board.
Actually, can I check? Do we meet requirements, Dan, for audio?
The audio's.
No, it'd be better if we're at the table.
Okay.
Okay.
Please join us. Thanks,
There are
Dan.
3 chairs. Perfect.
I would like to say the southwest part of the downtown area is well represented tonight.
Sure is. We all live in the same
Roll
neighborhood.
call?
Yeah, so David Kent,
Here.
Malik Hammond,
Here.
Stephanie Halter,
Present.
and then absent or excused Fred Kelsey, Peter Julia, and Tom McLaughlin. So we have 3 present, so that is a quorum.
Yep. We have not had an opportunity as a group to discuss what we would bring to you folks. I have some specific ideas, and these other members may have some as well. So we can talk about what our ideas are, or you may have questions of us as well.
I don't think we have any questions to open with.
Actually, I might have one question.
Sean surprises me. We have a question.
We made some changes last year
Yes.
at the planning board level, which then got passed by the public, as you all know, which gave you all a big gift of several more special exceptions. And I'm not sure we've ever, I know we've heard from you as a member of the public, but I'm not sure we've formally heard from the zoning board their perspective on some of those changes.
Yeah, I don't think we have.
So I thought that might be appropriate as a question from
Any
us.
thoughts?
Sure. Yeah.
Any thoughts?
I'm
We
mostly,
certainly,
I was thinking like traffic, like how many special exception requests are we getting?
yeah.
Are we getting more now than we used to?
We've definitely had
actually
more consistent meetings. So
don't
Yeah.
receive a lot of applications, but
We don't.
we certainly did like what the board did last year in terms of special exceptions. I know there was a rumble the year before about let's get rid of special exceptions, and I think it's a needed thing, and I'm gonna add to that in a few minutes when we get to talk. So I think it was a very positive thing that you people did.
And you think we're okay without having any extra criteria than the standard criteria that we?
That's what I'm gonna bring you tonight.
Okay, fair enough.
And from my perspective, and these members will have stuff as well, I believe that the criteria for a special exception should be enlarged to take into account the negative externalities on the area. No, I don't want to delineate it in terms of size, because the particular use to which the special exception is sought might extend for 50 feet, or 200 feet, or 300 feet. So it's an area that would be affected by a negative externality from that particular special exception. Ought to be something that the board can specifically find on, in my view.
Are you asking about off-site impacts of noise, dust, something more
Noise,
specific than
dust,
that? Traffic?
you take care of water flow and those kinds of things, traffic, right,
Yeah.
exactly, pedestrian risk, all of those things which could be impacted as a result of a special exception that's granted. And in some cases, it might be very slight, in which case the board could make a finding. We don't find an impact on the neighborhood as a result of this, which we have a right to do now. But in other cases, we might say, this particular use of what's envisioned could have a major negative impact on some of the neighbors for a substantial, either economic loss, or noise loss, or enjoyment loss. And we ought to be able to consider those things, in my view.
And there are some things that are already covered under the current criteria, right, in terms of impact on the community.
That's right.
Locally.
It's just very vague.
Okay. So more specific then.
And, you know, negative externalities could be smoke, dust, dirt, noise, those things which make the neighbor suffer as a result of that particular use. And I don't think when somebody buys a piece of property, invests in building a house, then all of a sudden next door, because it's allowed in the zoning ordinance, somebody starts with something which is really disruptive. So that's one thing I would suggest.
Yep, I thought it was in there too, but you're saying something more specifically down in more detail than
Okay?
just
Yeah.
the exception, yeah.
And that would be.
Current is more along the lines of safety and municipal impact.
Impact to the town.
Exactly. More in relation to snow removal or whatever, impact to the town itself, not to the neighboring
Potential butters.
properties.
That could be tuned up a little.
All right, thank you.
We ran into one recently, which I think deserves some looking at, which is short-term rentals need to be legislated in some way.
That was, yeah.
Yeah.
second.
Either
That was just
allow them-
recently, a couple weeks ago, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, either, they should either be allowed in the new extra residence that you have on a piece of property, or they should not. But that we ought to have discrete criteria in terms of how do you control short-term rentals, or should you control short-term rentals?
Do they need to have a permit? Should they be regulated? Should they have requirements, right? Things like that.
I mean,
Like other
just-
towns have regulated it.
If I may clarify though, I mean, I think this has come before the board in the past, and I think we had two responses. One in the short term, like for just the next couple of years. I think we were planning on talking about this with the housing study master plan as part of our engagement.
Correct.
It's getting public input before we actually like make a change to anything, so we know what the community wants. But beyond that, I think when it's come to the board before as well, I think there was, I'm not sure a full consensus, but a kind of general understanding that by not including it in our zoning ordinance in a permissive ordinance, we are regulating it, and we're saying no, except where it's already allowed, for example, in a tourist home. Otherwise, we are regulating it, and the answer is no, you can't do
There
it.
is a real dichotomy, however.
The
If someone has
tourist
a-
zone definition, right?
If someone has a single-family home, as an example, they put in the extra unit, which they're allowed to by law, they can rent that out as a short-term rental.
As a tourist home.
If it's an external building, they can't,
Which is what you were,
which is the jam we got into recently.
The
jam. It was.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
Well, with that one, we had some conflict on the board about the definition of the tourist home and what that really is, right? And so we did end up voting to allow that one special exception for it in the agricultural zone.
We were also told there's 30 of these in the town. Now, I don't know whether
There's
that
a
number
lot.
is real
There are.
or imaginary.
Yeah.
So it's no small
And
deal.
so saying that we don't allow it without any definitive route for enforcement,
That is an enforcement issue in some ways more than a zoning issue. It's not allowed in current zoning, and if people are doing it, that's an enforcement issue.
We did have an issue. Remember that house up on Ski Lift Lane?
Yeah.
A couple months ago?
And they could be told to stop.
They were renting it out and the person came to us for a
Person,
special
the
exception
owner.
for a fence,
yeah.
the next door neighbor.
One of the other
There's
problems
definitely
is-
people doing it in the residential zones, and it is creating some problems, and we are seeing that.
Interesting. So here's a question. It seems to me that our definition of tourist home is somewhat a holdover from previous times. Should that be, is that something we should look at revising as a potential zoning change? Or did you find it to be useful in your deliberations on current situations, or should we?
We were divided on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Which means it's confusing.
Yeah.
in some ways, I find some of the things in the tourist home as it currently is helpful. Owner occupancy does really cut down on some of the negative impacts of short-term rentals, including taking housing off the market, including having unattended people on properties. And so that's, I think, a benefit of the tourist home currently. It probably could be rewritten or changed or what have you. And the fact that you go for a special exception to do it and consider the impact is also a benefit of the current tourist home. I understand there was some, like, vagary there that was a holdover from its previous understanding. But I mean, I do think there's some positive things there to build on, that if we did want to more forthrightly address it and put it into our zoning, that there might be some good things there to work with.
Yeah, and I think the tourist home is limiting. It's a very limiting terminology. And I don't think we need to get in the weeds tonight about what changes we will be making, but I think when we looked at it, was it 2023 potentially, and we decided to hold off, and then we discussed it in 2024, knowing that in 2025 we'll be working on the next phase of the housing project and incorporate it into that. I think it has changed in the fact that 18 months ago we chose it not as a priority in our zoning amendments, and then when we were discussing them with the housing project for this year, to include it in this portion of the housing project, because I do think it needs to be addressed, and if you folks are starting to see it come up more and more as an issue, the tourist home is antiquated too.
But it also encompasses a very traditional use, which has been breakfast.
Yeah,
I mean, those fit perfectly into the tourist home
Although that's separately
definition.
regulated, I think, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah.
It's
Trans-
a
yeah.
different definition for a better word.
Which, yeah, I mean, if I mean, I guess if there's redundancy there, it would be interesting to explore the differences and potentially combine them.
I had concerns about the relative, the explosion of these things which are unregulated relative to safety. Who's examining these things? Are there exits? Is there a fire risk? What kind of risks are inherent?
Yeah, that's interesting, because once the town starts examining it, they're assuming the liability to say, we said this was safe. Yeah.
I think it's worth noting also that Tom, the inspector, was actually running into that as well and really requesting some clarity on his part so that he could do his enforcement.
Although I would also say that I think whatever change might take place, I think shouldn't come from Tom or even just from this board. It really should come from listening to the community first and seeing what the public wants to do before we draft any changes or anything. I wouldn't want to. I mean, short-term rentals have existed for a long time, even before Airbnb and all that. They've gotten more popular, and they haven't exploded as much in Plymouth as they have in many other communities. And I think we'd be well served by moving a little bit slowly, listening to everybody, and making a good choice, and also taking into account all the legal decisions that have come down in the last couple of years in terms of how to word
I do believe
this.
there's a conflict between what the legislature created as the extra unit, separate from let's say a one-family house, because this is the dilemma we had.
Detached ADU.
Unattached is not allowed as a short-term rental.
Right.
And should that be that way?
But I mean,
Right.
it could also be that the goal of that is to encourage more, use of ADUs as apartments
It was supposed to be.
or long-term
Yeah.
housing, not short-term
Right,
housing.
that's what it was, that's what some of us thought, and others didn't. So
Which-
that was a dilemma we had.
I mean,
Doesn't the state statute, Joseph, now that it's passed, that it's detached or attached, doesn't the state RSA still dictate that it's owner occupied for one of the dwellings?
It does.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's sort of the breakdown, is that the ADUs are to be owner occupied
Yeah.
per statute,
But they weren't supposed to be short-term rental.
but,
Correct, because
right,
they can't be transit.
but they're not for transient use.
And
And they are being used.
But that's a change of use, though. It's no longer an ADU, as I think you pointed out. Once it becomes a tourist home, that's a change of use. And if it's not used as an ADU for a certain amount of time, that falls off as a use on that property.
We were divided on that. That was not a universal view.
But I think it's a good point. I mean, in terms of the issues it raises.
Tourist house is supposed to be attached,
Well, yes.
and this was unattached.
Right, and that's a difficult thing, cause as it, maybe not difficult, but as it reads, it's clearly detached.
Right.
But it's also 8 feet away or 12,
It was
you know,
12 feet.
extremely
It was
close
very close.
in proximity,
Right.
so then you're like, ah.
But it could be
Yeah.
50 feet.
It could have been attached very easily.
Right, and then begs the question, what becomes too far then? 50
So
feet,
Wait, can I
80
just say
feet,
something?
120
But there-
feet?
I just want to, me personally at least, I don't know how anybody else feels, guard against like the dangers of relitigating what you guys just decided. If we get too into weeds about.
Ours is not a precedent. Anything we do is not a precedent. Every case is individual, every case is separate.
I just don't want to end up calling into question your decision you just made like a week ago.
Oh, I'd love you to do it. Go ahead.
So the
How
other
is
thing,
it not a
I
precedent?
don't want it to go.
How is it not a precedent?
Because every
was a
piece of
special
real estate is
exception.
unique.
Yeah.
Okay,
Therefore, every decision is unique to that particular piece of real estate.
okay.
We could hear from neighbors, we could hear from abutters, so each situation is gonna be unique.
So could one argue that if we're seeing something on a parcel and we're deliberating about something, that we might not be setting precedent if we make a decision because it's unique?
Well, it's different with
to
the
that?
planning board.
Okay.
different, that's.
Yeah, I feel
That's
like,
right.
yeah,
That's what I was just clarifying that, okay.
yeah.
But you're saying the specific to that land.
And the third one I would just float is, would it pay to have a temporary special exception for a property in transition? That
What
was
do
the
you-
case that was brought to us.
Oh, yeah.
Right, because their parents might be coming.
They said, we only want this for 2 years.
Right.
We
And I
didn't
would
have
have loved to
We
put
didn't
in
have
a
a
kill
choice.
clause on it.
Once we put it on there, it's on there for
There
good with
forever.
that
Right.
property.
Yeah, it
Unless
runs
they
with the land.
stop using it.
I don't know that it goes away.
No, if they stop using it, I believe a use
Oh,
goes
they have to
away.
abandon the use.
Yeah.
yeah,
However,
Then you have
they can sell the property now, the new owners get the use,
the
whatever.
use can be continued as long as it's not.
So what are your thoughts on the temporary thing?
If we'd had the authority, we would have gladly said, sure, go ahead for 3 years.
Mm.
And then it expires. But we didn't have that.
So the
Have a
other,
way to reapply for something like that?
This is
Give it
like
a
this is
you
time
like
have an
frame.
annual permit.
Because she said, yeah, I saw that, and
this is like
you
short-term
could
rental
give
by
one for
permit.
3 years, and
Mhm.
then,
That's somewhat what some towns have done,
Yeah.
is short-term rental by permit.
Where you have to renew it every year.
Yes,
Certify it, all that stuff.
yeah, meet certain requirements that might be changing, right?
So if,
Where's the state on rooms and meals tax as it applies to short-term
I'm sure
rentals?
they're gonna up it.
8.5%, I think, 9.5%.
But does it apply to short-term rentals? I thought I heard that hotels were complaining that Airbnb was not subject to
Like
that.
VRBO.
I believe it does apply, but not everybody actually pays it.
yeah, I think that's
So-
a big problem with them, is that they
I
are
think it
supposed to and they
does.
don't.
And I think a lot of the big companies that manage it pay that automatically, actually, for the client.
Right.
So if they're property management companies, that's one thing, but if it's, I mean, the whole point of like Vrbo and Airbnb is that it's managed by the homeowner, by the property owner, and they may not be filing and paying those taxes.
To your
too,
point,
right?
I think at some point, some of those big companies like Airbnb did, at least in some states, start paying that to get
Yeah.
themselves out
Oh,
of hot
really?
water, so they wouldn't be blocked by the states.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know all the details, but I remember that being an issue.
Something came up in your discussion about a 12-foot building separation. We may want to consider, for ADUs, is there a minimum? Do we have a minimum building separation for accessory unit, detached accessory units? Because there should be minimum separation
Well, there's like
standards
safe-
for fire protection.
Yeah.
You know, I know that some fire departments don't want houses closer than 30 feet to each other, so that you can, you know, separate, you know, if it's attached, it's one thing, because there has to be a firewall between attached units, but if they're detached,
I
there's
think
the
in this
issue of
house,
fire spreading from one to
There was
the
a,
other.
there was an existing garage that they converted to an ADU,
I
right?
was gonna say, yeah,
So-
a lot of people put them over garages, and garages can be really close to your
They
house.
can,
But we do have it, to answer your question, because remember that 11-unit parcel on 1.4 acres out on Fairgrounds Road, Dale and Harry
But that
Balke?
was not, those were not ADUs,
That's
though.
different though.
Well, there was a building separation code, because multiple dwellings on one lot.
And that was in the zoning for multiple residential on a single lot, that they had to meet fire safety requirements.
Separation standards.
And that's different than the ADU requirements.
Wouldn't that still fall under multiple dwellings on one lot?
No.
Interesting questions that are coming up here.
Back to the temporary thing, to
Mhm.
sort of bring it full circle. So a temporary, if
Special exception.
a temporary special exception, if you will, is that something we would put through at town meeting through an amendment, or?
We wanted to put it in the ordinance, but we would have to, yeah, we'd have to put it in the ordinance.
We don't have authority to do it.
Yeah.
That's a conclusion we came to.
Correct.
And then our timeline would be as soon as the soonest timeline would be town meeting through an amendment of the ordinance.
And I would say again, I think it's really important to hear what the community wants before we make any of these changes.
Yep. And I think by then,
I agree.
we might have
I think
some, because I know we have some community outreach.
Yeah, it's a perfect
Discussions on
moment,
the 7th.
actually, yeah.
So we might actually get there by then.
so. I think in some ways, for me at least, one of the most important questions tonight is not like what should we do, but what questions should we be asking of our community?
Yeah.
Well, you gotta bring them up to speed before you can ask them questions.
This is true. It's education first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, excellent.
We, just as information, Joseph tells me we have one case before the Supreme Court now, and we have, one case where the selectmen agreed to grant something which the board didn't grant.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I appreciate the conclusion of that meeting. I'll just leave it there.
We're not happy, but
And I've heard people in the town weren't happy. I've heard others.
I would echo. Yeah.
Yeah.
For those who didn't watch the meeting, anyone want to?
Yeah, I don't know what's being alluded to.
This has to do with Kirk's and
Tenny Mountain Highway.
and
Or
the zoning board
three
decision
properties or?
versus what's happened with the town. And,
Two are sistered, but
One Tenny Mountain.
yeah.
Will those vehicles remain in
I-
that state?
It's a very high number.
it's like 175.
than-
It was more than what we had turned down that application, basically, when they came to us with that number and they got everything they asked for.
Is it sort of like a higher number than what you visually see there now? Would you think?
I don't know that. I
Okay.
think it's really hard to know how many cars they have there.
Exactly.
Just
Unfair question, sorry.
It
viewing
was
it
like
from the road,
500 cars, right? It was a large.
it doesn't qualify, viewing it from the road, but I'd have to let the town inspector make that kind of determination.
Well, I think there was some concern as well that
It's supposed to relate to drivable vehicles.
and
As I
this,
drive by, there's a lot of non,
yeah.
Your vehicle is the drivable vehicle as you drive by. That's Joey's.
But there seemed to be some concern that the ZBA made a decision and then the town made a separate decision that didn't comply with the ZBA's
The
decision.
select board, yeah.
They didn't support them.
We had a lot of abutters come to that hearing. I mean, there were people that were very upset with the current state of properties.
the thing that was saddening, at least on my part, they may have lost in the Superior Court, I don't know. But then they could have appealed to the Superior Court, the Supreme Court. I believe we had a strong case for what we wanted. For some reason or other, the wind was blowing the other way, or the lawyer didn't fight, or the judge was upset, I don't know. I'm uneducated about how the process actually worked and how it's supposed to work. I think we would have won the case, but that's just my opinion.
it's not.
All you gotta do is get the judge to drive by.
Yeah.
Talk to some people in town.
That's a shame.
So,
Especially because the town spent a lot of money on lawyer fees already on that case, right?
Yeah.
To
they
settle.
didn't wanna spend the money. I mean, the decree actually says that.
Yeah.
Huh.
That may be very short-sighted.
Very.
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 Mhm.
If you're gonna have a zoning ordinance, people have to believe it's going to be enforced.
Yeah.
Right.
Our board believes that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's why we take some tough stances sometimes, which may be unpopular, but If the regulation doesn't fit, change the regulation, but live by the regulation.
Yeah.
At the same time, I mean, there's something to be said for, there's no regulation that's perfect enough to accommodate all of the varieties of uses you might encounter in a town, and there should be some flexibility, but I don't think this case needed that flexibility.
The word junkyard is legislated.
Absolutely. I'm not arguing on this case.
And in general, I think that's what the zoning board is for those
Yeah.
special exceptions.
Or variance, if
Yeah.
it comes to that, yeah.
Right.
And people had a lot of, not just like unsightly concerns, but also environmental impacts.
Yeah.
Right, and
Yeah.
to health and safety.
Yeah, generally, cars that are road going, you know if they're going to leak something, but if something's sitting 3 cars deep and you can't even get to it to see if there's a puddle under it, there's a lot of risk there.
We had a lot of neighbors, especially on the Route 3 property, that have wells,
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and they were very concerned, right?
Yeah, a lot of dug wells down there too. All right,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Can I just, sorry, I wanna go back just briefly.
Yeah,
I wanna make sure I understand your comments about negative externalities and the special exceptions.
Okay.
Because the special exception criteria is the 6 in the ordinance, right? Adequate size, not adversely affect the character of the area, no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, not excessive undue burden on town services and facilities, and no significant effect resulting upon public health, safety, and general welfare. So those seem like those negative externalities that you mentioned, but are those not specific enough?
I think the word general welfare,
Okay.
unfortunately, is so vague that it could be challenged when we make what seems like an arbitrary decision.
Okay,
That's my difficulty. I mean, I can say almost anything's against somebody's welfare.
right.
And I'd like to be able, the other problem is, what area is included? It sort of depends on what is proposed. If somebody's running an incredibly noisy operation where it can be heard for a half a mile,
Uh-huh,
that's a negative externality that those people in that area are gonna be affected by.
uh-huh,
If it's something which is a little bit of noise part of the time, maybe the noise is aggravating to the neighbor, but not really a negative externality, which we would consider. We need the latitude, area-wise, as well as impact-wise.
I'm just thinking about the pros and cons of interpretation and becoming too specific, that we can't consider everything.
I'm not asking to be specific.
Okay,
That's why I use the words negative externalities.
okay, I see. So that specific phrase
That
is
is
the
an
most
economics
important.
phrase. That's an economic phrase.
Oh, go ahead.
no, that's fine. I just want to, I want to flesh out some questions here. So, criteria 3, the use as developed will not adversely affect the character of the area in which the proposed use will be located. I would think that there would be fairly broad ability to interpret that area as anything, you know, if there's a rock crushing operation where you can measure off-site sound impacts and it's over 50 decibels at 300 feet away, like you could easily define the area to include all of those 300 feet, right?
I think the problem with what you've read is the word character.
Mhm.
The agricultural zone is designed as a catch-all. Anything goes, Wild West type
Right.
thing. So character becomes a problem, as well as,
Agricultural use.
This is why
so industrial commercial use is not explicitly allowed in those areas. So noise from a rock crusher, I would not expect in an agricultural zone.
Can I just say, this is a good reason to have descriptions of each zone, which we currently do not have. And if we had descriptions of each zone and what these zones actually mean in addition to the use table, that might give you more guidance as well as to like what actually is that character. So it's not just as vague.
well, we all know that the name
Well, yeah, I get that
is
part. Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah. Yes.
Agricultural zone name.
It may have a historic value, but that's all it has.
But which is why an actual description of the zone might be helpful.
I know.
Some people are quite tied to it.
That's a hard
Rich,
name
don't
to
say.
change.
Who's in there?
I also wanted to comment, kind of nitpicking a little bit, but you said it's the general welfare, right?
I didn't say the word general. Oh, you said welfare.
It's in the.
No, what's the general? It's general something
It's yeah.
in the.
It's
In the
the
ordinance.
criteria right now.
Yeah.
general law.
Yeah, it does say general welfare, number,
And-
under
and-
6, that
and-
safety and general welfare of the neighborhood in which the use would be located.
And you did say like anything could affect somebody, but somebody is not general. If it affects
Everyone.
a bunch of people, then it starts to become the general welfare. Affecting one person, I suppose if it's enough can like stop something, but otherwise that's not really the general welfare. That's just like somebody's welfare.
You could
And
make,
that can be interpreted too.
Yeah.
well, you could make the case that like a rock crushing operation operating between 7 a.m. and 5 p.m. might negatively affect the guy who works nights and sleeps during the day, but that's not a general welfare issue. It's very specific
Anyone with a
to that
child.
one individual. Maybe.
It's hard, because sometimes in agricultural zone, there's not too many neighbors, you know what I mean?
But yeah, in much
this
of the
is
ag
why you
zone,
have the
there's
leeway
there's a lot of neighbors.
For a special exception in the ag zone, so you can actually like look at that, those sorts of things.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's why we have a planning board.
Any other questions?
You guys all set?
Topics? I don't know.
Well, thanks for the invitation.
Oh, I have a
Will
question.
you come back?
About
Okay.
drinking
Anytime we're
in public.
invited and we're available.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
it's state
for sure.
law.
And if things come up,
No,
we try.
not yet.
I know, I,
Locally,
my hat's off to you, because you
Oh,
do have
right.
some sticky things.
Some sticky things.
drinking in public.
Drinking in public?
Yeah.
Social zones?
Well, they just passed a new
We just
law.
passed that
Okay.
state law.
Did you?
Yeah.
The state passed a
I
law
can't
just this
imagine
week or
that
last
that's
week.
gonna become,
They're gonna make, actually, Joseph, you wouldn't mind.
I can give a very brief summary. So I didn't
Written.
put this in my memo about state law changes, but it is a recent change to state law that allows towns at town meeting to authorize the creation of social districts, which is an area of the community wherein licensed establishments, that is, a licensed beer, wine, liquor selling establishment, can sell alcohol to patrons in designated cups, which they may consume off the premise out in public in that designated area.
See that at town
Common.
meeting?
town
We're gonna have a
common.
drinking zone?
Yeah, I mean, it empowers towns to adopt that. It does. I mean, feasibly, like in theory, you could, yes. Have a
I can
bunch
see
of.
some places in New Hampshire that being an okay thing.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's Plymouth.
They need to improve the crosswalks a little more.
A little better
A
lighting.
little bit of lighting.
I don't know what in the world would happen if you went to the town meeting with something like that.
I'm not saying we should have one, but the fact is, there are people in our community already walking around intoxicated from time to time, especially certain times a year with our like nice weather and students having parties and stuff. And this wouldn't necessarily, I'm not saying, and again, I'm not saying we should actually do this, but it doesn't necessarily like increase public intoxication, but it does allow for regulation of that in particular places, and you can't just tailgate there because it has to be like provided by a certain provider. So I'm saying the negative impacts aren't necessarily as big as some people I think would imagine, which is not to say we should do it here, but I don't think in most places if they adopt this, it's going to lead to increased like public intoxication because people are already drinking in bars and then going out and wandering around and falling over. That happens anyway.
Right, and this doesn't permit you to be intoxicated in public.
No,
It
No.
permits you to consume it if the town designates an
in a
area.
nice outdoor
Yeah.
space.
There are
With
states
a
where.
specific cup.
But can you drink at a school?
It
I mean,
wouldn't.
if you,
I could see this like in North Conway.
I would like to remind you, there are states where you
Tourist
can
towns where you
Exactly.
want to
legally buy a drink
Lago Valley.
at a drive-through and drive away while consuming it.
A
Like,
lot of states have that.
yeah, I mean, it's not,
Ohio.
there are states where it's illegal to
You go to like
be
McDonald's.
intoxicated, but there's no prohibition against consuming.
Waterville Valley's a great example. That'd be a great
Or-
spot.
And you can.
Open
You
container.
can up there, yeah.
No,
Remember-
for-
You may remember
New
upstairs
Orleans.
here, we used to have a courtroom, and on a spring weekend or a fall weekend, you have 30 youngsters, all of whom been arrested that weekend, you know, in mass. So, you know, drinking in public is not something that has not
Happened.
happened in the past.
Plus, I think it's more of a boom for businesses.
If you
Yeah.
regulate what you can regulate, and you don't
Businesses might
regulate
start
what you can't
advocating for
regulate.
this and
Right.
wanting this.
Yeah.
That's something that I think that people need to consider, because businesses have advocated for other things, like at town meeting, they advocated for gambling, right?
Keno.
Right, we had the Keno.
We might see a petition zoning amendment to adopt this, signed by 25 members of.
Phil is proposing.
And we would have nothing to do
But
with it.
like, it would, I mean, it might go to town
This would
meeting.
not
Neil,
surprise me.
if someone was sitting in their front yard with a bottle of beer, would they violate this law?
Yeah,
In your front yard?
Yeah,
Depends-
Front yard.
It depends where the
Private-
social zone is
private
defined,
property?
because you can't leave the social zone with your drink.
drink.
if you're in
And it
public.
can't be a glass bottle, it has to be a plastic cup that's labeled specifically for
For
to-go
somebody in the
sale.
downtown area, suppose they're sitting in their own front yard, private property,
Oh. With an open container?
yes.
That should be legal.
That should be.
I mean, you yourself on your own
People
Me
property.
been
sitting in my
arrested
own
for
yard
that.
with a drink?
Yeah,
I do it all the time.
People have been arrested for that.
I think we should get in trouble.
I hope it's not illegal.
Everybody knows
It's in the
now.
zone, what if it's in the zone?
I think it has to be a public
So,
space presumably to be.
all I have is the AI summary of the
Commercial
law,
zone, 'cause
but
they're selling
it has to be, if so let's say the zone went from, you know, KTM up to the end of the square, it would encompass like the Lucky Dog, Grotto, and Yamas, and they might all have to-go cups, and people could come hang out on the square.
Or
or
people
on the
could
po-
get like dinner
But-
and
but then-
drinks and then take it to
Yeah,
the
but
green.
then you can't, the way the rule is written is you can go anywhere within that social zone as it's defined, but you're not supposed to leave that social zone, but enforcement is,
I think imagine this, there are already
up to
establishments,
yeah.
especially in other towns, with large outdoor spaces
Right.
that are on their private property where you can drink. And this kind of, like, in theory, would kind of expand that to a slightly more expansive public space. But it's still, like, delimited, where you could do something similar, just to get some fresh air, I suppose, and be social. And
I think when restaurants file their liquor permit, they have to define where it's gonna be. So like, if you go to like the Little Red Schoolhouse in Campton, like, you can take a drink outside and take it to the picnic tables next to the,
Meredith.
like,
That's
you know,
another good
there are
one.
places where
Yeah.
you can be
Think about
outside,
town
but it's on
halls.
a single
Yep.
private parcel. This would allow off-property transport of
Yeah.
those
Well-
to-go
It'll be
drinks.
interesting to see if they take it and extend it to the lakes.
I thank you for the invitation. I'd like to come to I'd like to come to the meeting when this is discussed, but I gotta go now.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
coming.
We'll wait for your petition zoning amendment.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Malik. How was your hike, Steph?
It was great.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Cool.
I did 27 miles
Good for,
in 3 days, 2 nights.
that's
nice.
good for you.
Great.
That's awesome.
Yeah, 4,000.
With the teenager. And you're both here. Good.
Cool.
Thank you all. Good night.
See you later.
Yeah.
Hottest days of the year.
Is there anything we need to adjourn for their departure or change in?
We'll denote that there's no longer a quorum here of the ZBA.
Left.
7:22 left.
Is it a quorum of only 3 because the board is so small?
Yeah, it's a 5-member
Yeah.
board,
Okay.
With one alternate.
1 alternate. Yep.
David said I'm leaving, and hence there was no longer a quorum.
That's it.
So theoretically, 2 members could have stayed as members of the public.
Members of the public, that's true.
But
Yeah, okay.
there is no longer a ZBA quorum, therefore the meeting is
Adjourned.
more.
The meeting is no
Well, we shall move on as a planning board.
I'm sure that Dave Kent knows a lot more about this drinking in public.
Changes though, the laws change,
Careful,
right?
Neil.
I mean, this is the town,
I mean, he's been sitting on the bench for years.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
but he only enforces the laws on the books at the time. If the laws change, he's gotta stay on top of it, right?
So,
Finding my ground here. Finding my footing where I am.
We're gonna keep moving it under you. How do you like that?
Oh.
I love it. Wait, what? Joseph,
Yes.
I propose what I feel was probably the last communication received
Mm-hmm.
that you were going to discuss was your memorandum here of
Yep.
recent changes to state law impacting our zoning.
Yep.
Let's take some time and go through this
Mhm.
and sort of discuss how this will affect our potential changes to zoning and what we need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. If the board wants, I can start with just giving an overview of what's changed, and then if the board wants to take some time. What's that? If the board wants to take some time and look at it, or if we want to delve back in to any particular one, happy to. But if it's easiest, I can just give an overview of everything, and then we can dial in from there. If that works for folks.
I think that sounds good. Does everyone
I
concur?
choose that one, yes. Ooh, good catch.
I kind of like the one at a time, but like, whatever. If everybody else wants to do it the other way, then that's fine.
We can do one at a time. I did whatever one.
Oh, just to go through one at a time
Sure.
and then discuss?
No, like, do one, discuss it, do one, discuss it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, as I've been alluding to for a little while, the planning department has been monitoring a number of pieces of legislation, which, if signed into law, would have direct implications for planning and zoning here in Plymouth. Some of them are direct preemptions of local zoning, and of course, zoning in New Hampshire is enabled at the municipal level by state law, so they do set the parameters within which municipalities have the authority to zone. So as a result, they do have the authority as well to place limitations on what we can and cannot do with zoning and other related items. So I wanted to summarize a few of these because now several of them have been signed into law as of the 15th, so just a couple of days ago here, and some of them are in effect as we speak. Some of them are immediate effect. Some don't take effect for a little while. Many of them, though, will require us to do something different. So I'll start with the first one, which was originally known as House Bill 631, which is multifamily buildings in commercial zoning districts. This one goes into effect July 1st of next year, though, so we do have a town meeting cycle to make zoning changes to comply with this one, which is different than some of these other pieces of law that are changed. So
Can you say that again? We do have time because.
correct. So this law does not go into effect until after town meeting.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
some of these laws, as I'll mention a little bit later, are in effect immediately. Therefore, we may have zoning that is at this point on its face in direct conflict with state law. But I'll touch on that a little bit when we get to the later ones, and we're looking into it to make sure we do that right in this sort of interim period wherein our zoning says one thing and state law says another. But that's not the case with this one. However, this law does say that in all land zoned for commercial activities, defined as including retail and office uses, multifamily residential development must be allowed, provided that adequate infrastructure, water, defined as water, sewer, and roads, is available to support the development. Municipalities may require, but do not have to require, that ground floor space or a percentage thereof be dedicated to commercial uses, so requiring that to be a mixed-use development as opposed to just multifamily. But multifamily may still be restricted in zones where industrial and manufacturing uses are permitted. An internal residential conversion must be allowed for buildings which do not meet current dimensional requirements. So that's if you had a commercial building, a retail store that was too close to the setback, the zoning must allow for residential conversion of that. Implications for Plymouth at a high level: multifamily is already permitted in the village commercial zoning district, though commercial is required on the ground floor unless you get a special exception. Multifamily is permitted by special exception in highway commercial, civic institutional, industrial commercial, and agricultural, and it's also permitted in multifamily residential. So at a bare minimum, multifamily will need to become a permitted use in the highway commercial zoning district. That's the one that this law clearly applies to, because it allows for those commercial uses but does not allow for industrial uses. The planning board could decide to write a zoning amendment for this in a number of different ways, but generally it's going to need to include allowing multifamily by right, either with a first floor commercial requirement or not. The civic institutional zone may also meet the definition of a commercial zone for purposes of this law, since it does permit some limited commercial uses by right, such as office and commercial service, but does not include retail. So we'll have to consider a little bit whether, as defined under the law, the CI zone will need to be changed to permit multifamily. Industrial commercial development district, however, since it permits industrial uses, most likely is not impacted by the law. So that's the big picture, high level overview of how this relates.
We're not required to allow it in the ICD, but we still could.
Correct.
Yes.
Yep.
So I have
Also allowed in special
I have a question. What if commercial is, I'm actually just wondering about the ag zone, where commercial is sometimes allowed, is other times allowed by special exception, and is not quite as black and white. And what about the ag zone?
So,
Can I ask a related question?
Yeah, of
Because
course.
I'm looking at our table of uses, and we have this big list of commercial uses. One of them is commercial service, but are we required to allow
I guess if you have one of them,
multifamily housing in every one of those, every zone that permits a commercial use?
somehow.
any
so-
commercial use.
That's,
Or does it have to be
It's pretty much whole town.
yeah,
or does this have to be titled commercial?
right.
So commercially zoned land for the purposes of the law at this point means, and I'm quoting here directly, means land zoned for such commercial activities as retail and office space.
Oh.
So it does not say permits by special exception or permits by right, but it does say zoned for such commercial activities as retail and office space. I would say immediately, if
Both of
you,
those are special exception currently.
it depends
The
on
ag
the zone.
zone?
In ag zone, yes. They're,
Zone for-
So it would not, we would not be required to allow it in the ag zone then,
I would say that is my initial impression. but-
until a judge says differently.
Right, and perhaps more guidance will come out, but at this point, we just have the actual definition used in statute to go off from, but if such commercial activities as retail and office space are what a piece of land is zoned for, then you have to allow.
So here's an interesting, if we want to split hairs, the, if it says retail and office space, the C&I allows for, or sorry, the commercial, no, what is that?
Highway
ICD?
commercial?
No,
No,
the
civic
CI.
institutional.
Civic institutional allows for office space, but does not allow for retail, so that would not meet the definition of retail and office space.
I don't think we should.
I'm splitting hairs.
I mean, no,
if they want to be jerks, we could be jerks.
No,
I'm happy to be a jerk with them.
I mean, I'm looking at what our civic zone is, and
It does not allow retail and office, so thereby we do not have to allow multifamily housing in that zone.
A lot of these bills were not very well written. They're better written now than they were in the beginning, but they're still full of
Just think what people are gonna be
I
saying
know.
in less than 20 years.
Exactly.
I
What would
know.
they think?
I'm fine with that.
The one that very clearly this applies to is highway commercial. I
Yeah.
agree
Yeah.
that CI may or may not, depending on whether you, how much attention you give that but I agree. Highway commercial is the one that allows for both of those uses
Right.
and does not allow industrial
yeah,
Highway commercial and village commercial.
and village commercial.
Which
but village
it
commercial
already was
allows
allowed.
Right,
it.
so, yeah, I mean, I don't see a problem with, I mean, honestly, when I think about the highway commercial and how limited it is, I think multifamily housing would be fine there anyway,
Which it is
especially,
now under special
especially if we do first floor, especially if we do first floor retail.
what is multifamily right now in the civic institution?
It is a special exception.
exception.
Okay.
But it could, I mean, we could also do permitted in the civic institutional, but if.
I'm only asking because somebody in town is talking about creating multifamily housing, which
Oh,
may or
really?
may not even need a variance currently, I'm at a university.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah.
They
It's
don't
in-
need variances, do they?
They do if it's not a public use.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, they're exempt if it's,
So if
Educational use.
my reading would be, maybe we should have asked the ZBA about this. My reading would be if they just and I think we talked about this, if they just allow like faculty and staff to live there, they can probably get away with it being a public use. If they allow other people to live there, then I think it becomes a non-public use and subject to zoning.
As
In
it
which
should
case
be.
they can't go over 6 units.
As it should be.
I think you're,
If they wanna compete with the
But
free
if they wanna,
market.
Yeah.
but if they build it to be if they build it to be a private use and then convert it later, that would be a change of use that would have to be subject to.
I'd love to see them pay taxes on that building too.
Not only taxes, but they need a variance.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I don't know.
To-
If
might
we-
not
To
get-
be honest though,
Yeah.
I'm happy to see the college do what they need to do to maintain financial viability.
I will just mention again, this is one of the reasons I brought up the potential zoning amendment a few months ago. One of many reasons, I think it's good for many scenarios, to allow existing buildings, to be converted to residential, even going above unit numbers, if there are already existing buildings that are already in our fabric of our town.
I
And
like
doesn't
that.
the state law include that?
No.
Oh, not by not
I
units.
agree with that. I think that makes a lot of sense. There are definitely some large buildings in town that are perfectly appropriate to be turned into more than 6 units.
And they already exist, so it's
Right.
not like they'd be
We're not
changing
building new.
radically the
Yeah.
character.
Right.
And you could even have a cutoff date, like if it's like, like Joseph and I talked about at some point, like if it's before the date that we enacted this, then the danger is, if you don't say something like that, I think, is if there's no cutoff date or some kind of stipulation. I'm not sure how other communities have done this. A lot of communities are starting to do this. That you could create a commercial building by commercial standards, knowing that you want to convert it in 2 years to residential.
Yeah, I don't like this idea actually.
No, but there are ways of writing this
But a
to.
large commercial building, just because we have a large building, should be like, hey, we already have this large building. Whatever best suits the building owner for the number of units they need, they should be able to do because the building's already there and they're already large. Because I think it goes to what you're saying, the commercial use, the use change is what's huge. It's like, so it's a commercial use building, and now it's
Change of use to residential.
change of use, which is a
Multifamily.
significant change of use. I don't know. I think there's a lot of work to
I
look
mean,
at.
but think about this. You could end up with residential properties that are far cheaper to produce than building a new multifamily unit. And
Theoretically, there's still going to be market rate housing. I mean, no one's going to say I built it cheaper, therefore this is now not market rate. I mean,
no, but it's still
we can
free.
theorize about how someone's going to price out, unless it's
No,
subsidized.
I'm not
housing.
I'm not
Unless it's
theorizing.
subsidized housing.
I'm
We're
not-
just theorizing that it's going to be priced better.
I'm not
for
theorizing
the
that.
consumer.
I'm
That
not,
is a theory.
I'm not theorizing that, though.
Okay.
What I'm
What's your-
theorizing is that you can end up with more housing on the market, which is a good
Okay.
thing overall,
Yeah.
because it can be produced cheaper by reusing an existing building.
And you were saying,
Reproduce it cheaper for the person that's doing it, not.
And
the
overall, just have
consumer.
more housing on the market, which is
Yeah.
not a bad thing,
No.
And I would argue that.
regardless how much it's going for.
Yeah.
I would argue that, a large existing building that may have some amount of value as a commercial property, if converted to, let's say, a single building is converted to, 15 residential units, the value of that property is gonna go up, and the tax value is gonna go up, and it's gonna contribute to building out the assessed value of the town, which will help decrease the tax rate overall.
John, you were saying something about a time cutoff. So you can't have people building new commercial buildings and then saying, "Oh, I'm going to convert it to housing now."
Yeah, so there has to be some kind of mechanism to prevent people from doing just that.
Like the building has to have been built prior to 2000.
Either the building has to
something.
exist in its commercial use for a certain number of years,
I see.
or only things created before the enactment of this is actually even allowed to be converted.
Yeah.
But there has to be
That's good.
but there
I
has
like
to be
that.
some mechanism
Yeah.
Yeah.
to
No, there
avoid
definitely has
people
to be, yeah, if
doing a
that's
bait and
something.
switch.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it would allow PSU, if they needed to, without going through a variance, which are probably hard to get, frankly, for this, I think, to offer units not just to their own faculty and staff, which I think might be a public use. I don't think beyond that would be a public use. Anyway, just my thoughts. And it could get it on the tax rolls. If it's not,
At
if
a
it's not a
higher-
public, if
at a
it's not
higher rate.
if it's not a public use.
It's going
No,
on.
I mean like a PSU
Yeah.
property.
Right, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
He'll have you remember how that connected to the state law?
It did somehow, but I forgot.
Yeah, okay. I was just trying to
The
remember.
CI zone, civic institutional zone.
Civic is, that's it, thank you.
Yeah, I think
That
it's a
was
civic
it.
institutional zone, which made me think about housing there, and plans for housing there that certain people are being very vocal about. Anybody else read about this?
I have no.
No.
The university is being quite vocal about converting. Which dorm is it?
The one on Highland Street, I don't recall the name.
Belknap?
What are the avenues of being vocal about it?
It's in the Business New Hampshire magazine.
Thank
The
you.
president of the college was quoted.
Cite-
saying that he
we're
wants to
excited.
do it.
We're excited.
So it is out there in public. It's not a.
Okay, it's not like an inside
There's
knowledge.
there's like
thing.
buzz about it, and like it's.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, I just was curious.
I'll look for the article.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Joseph, any other thoughts, or anyone else any other thoughts?
Sorry to
on
get us off
this
track.
part of
Sorry to
the,
get us off track, but yeah, I do think it's important to potentially consider that.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the obvious step is to start with the highway commercial, and then
Yeah,
I'm reticent to say, yeah, we're gonna include it in the civic institutional. And I mean, I'm interested in what you were saying about
Yeah.
footprints and,
And I think for the ICD, when we talked to Judy last time she was here, I think we talked about that as part of our engagement, whether or not the public is actually interested in housing there or not.
Yeah, I think highway commercial is pretty cut and dry.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the ICD we actually mentioned to her as part of our engagement for the master plan.
there are some properties along Tenny Mountain Highway now that are probably good examples of what could be first floor retail, second floor residential.
yeah.
What's the development on the south side of the highway just before Tenny Mountain, like the Cologne, like
The
they're all-
commercial park? The
Yeah,
Plymouth
they're
commercial
all like
park?
green
Oh.
gambrel roof. It's a
Oh.
professional center,
Yes, I know the one you
Oh,
mean.
yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about.
colonial
There's a hair-
something there.
Hair boutique.
Yeah,
and
there's
Savers in
yeah,
there.
and then like there's offices.
it off yet,
Colonial
Ritz?
Square, maybe.
Colonial Square, yeah. But I mean, most of the second floor is all like professional services, but like those could easily be residential above retail and not affect the
Before you
character
get to
of the
the
area.
entrance
Like
to,
hearing
You know,
life
the-
that just got
There,
built.
you know, the parking needs
Oh, I got you.
overlap,
Yeah.
so you know, you can
The
get by
traffic
with less
light
parking
is-
because you don't have to,
it's
you
near
have
that furniture
residents that leave,
place.
that are
Yeah.
there at night but leave during the day, and you have people that come in to frequent the businesses during the day, so it's not the end of the world.
Which is why, as part of our
I like-
engagement, we
Yeah.
have to make sure we ask everybody about this.
Yeah,
Because that's the whole point of the top process right now, so housing master
the
plan.
flower shop too, I'm trying to think.
Flowers.
Yeah,
And
they're
find
also
out-
looking at
Hearing
that now.
life that just got built next to Grand State Glass.
Right.
And
right.
find out what the community wants.
And that's a great one. You have 2 units upstairs,
Yeah.
parking in the back for the residents,
Mhm.
tenants, and storefront up front.
We,
for-
we could probably, you know, identify several properties there that are residential over retail and as examples and say, you know, is this something we want to permit explicitly in the ICD, or do we want to reserve this space for more commercial or industrial use? Knowing that we've made it more difficult to cite those uses in the ag zone, like, do we wanna reserve those spaces for more of those uses?
So we have two kind of questions to add to our list of housing outreach, right? Short-term rentals and ICD.
Yeah.
I think the ICD was, I think they were both already on there.
Were they?
They're
Okay.
both gonna be topics. I
Yeah.
think,
Fantastic.
But Joseph needs an answer so we can get him an amendment. For, some
I voted-
clarification on
I
this
think
one.
we should definitely move forward with the
Highway commercial.
Yes.
Which we have to anyway, I guess.
But I think anything that we allow there should be residential over retail, for, no first floor residential.
On highway commercial?
What do you think? I honestly, I think anytime we have the opportunity to do first floor retail with residential over it, it's good for the town.
There's been a lot of pushback lately from, there's a lot of support for that type of development. And
Mixed
for-
use.
Mixed use for very good reasons in like downtown cores.
Yeah.
But beyond that,
That's not downtown enough.
Beyond that, there's an argument that it can actually prohibit the development of residential properties because that actually adds a lot of costs and takes away revenue from a property to mandate first floor commercial. It's great for the character of a downtown, but if it goes too far, you can actually dissuade developers from even trying to build anything.
So we're not necessarily, I think, trying to persuade developers to build it. I think making sure we're giving them mechanism to.
But by mandating first floor commercial, you might be dissuading them from even trying.
I'm thinking about
As
what,
opposed to leaving them the option of doing it if they want.
And that's what I'm saying is not leaving them the option and saying, if you are, because we have the right to choose, the town has the right to choose to say the first floor is going to be or is not going to be something. So I think that's when we can decide, talking to the public as well, to say, if, just say on Tenny Mountain Highway, for example, if on Tenny Mountain Highway, would you want to see housing that is on the first floor as well, or would you only want it to be, second floor and house?
And I think it's important that as part of that discussion, the public also realizes that as wonderful as it is to build that way, and it's what makes our downtown so wonderful, that it also can easily convince a developer not to build.
thinking about what the highway commercial district is like as well, and
There's some existing residential uses.
there's some I mean, it's a mixture. I think mandating it has to be commercial isn't necessarily in keeping with what the zone is like right now.
So can I read, so our existing table of uses for the highway commercial permits accessory dwelling units, residential institutions, that's it for residential uses. All these other residential uses are by special exception. So
All of the houses out
manufactured
there?
housing, multifamily dwellings, we already allow multifamily by special exception, but open space residential by special exception, rooming house special exception, single family detached by special exception.
There's so many houses out there.
But that's not what it's zoned at currently. So those are all
Those are pre-
non-conforming homes. You
okay.
can't build you can't build new single family houses.
They're old homes too, so they're
In
pre.
the highway commercial without a special exception.
Got it.
And to some extent, I think looking forward, that might make sense. For the single family anyway. I'm not sure that's the direction it's best to go with.
With land that has more commercial value.
Land that has more commercial value and utilities and all the other stuff it has. I think that's not a terrible thing, at least for the single family residential, detached.
So in the village commercial, we currently require ground floor retail, but we say you can have ground floor residential by special exception. That's another kind of middle of the road approach.
Maybe that's a good way to go forward with the highway commercial.
Yeah.
Or do we just want to have first floor, like multifamily with first floor, like, if you're looking for ADA compliant units and you have to have a percentage, you could have, it would if you're required to have a certain amount of ADA compliance and you're doing multifamily or residential, you'd then have to put in an elevator into a building with first floor retail, whereas if you do first floor residential, then you could make ADA compliant units on the first floor.
I mean, I look at this, I mean, again, I feel myself odd even arguing this, but I love first floor retail. But I look at Plymouth's capacity to expand a commercial district with like intense walkability and first floor retail, even with hopefully the new like sidewalks and stuff going to North Main and all that. And I wonder if really kind of focusing that activity downtown and kind of building out some of the empty spots down the hill and stuff like that is a more apt place to really intensely push for walkable commercial development, and a little bit further out on the highway commercial saying, if you want to do a residential structure without commercial, that's fine. And if you want to do commercial right next door, or even first floor, if you can make that work, that's fine as well, but not mandating first floor retail
Yeah.
or commercial.
Okay,
That's, I mean, that's my personal take.
I'm okay with that.
I'm in agreement.
All right, let's move on to the next one.
Right.
Everyone's good for this start of the discussion
Yeah.
on that one.
Yeah, and I can always work up some conceptual language, and then the board can, based on this discussion, and then the board can always, use that as a starting point for further discussion in the future too. So the next one that I have here is HB 577, or as it was formerly known. This says that accessory dwelling units must be permitted by right in all zones that allow residential uses. That means attached and detached accessory dwelling units. For a thorough description of the changes to the current ADU law, please see the attached guidance document from New Hampshire Municipal Association, which they got out very quickly. So I did attach that to the back of the memo, but broadly speaking, the big change here is they must be permitted by right in any zone that permits residential, attached or detached. Right now, Plymouth complies with that in all except for single-family residential. In single-family residential, we require a special exception for ADUs. There are one or two other things that may need to be slightly tweaked. So it does say that any aesthetic standards applied to ADUs must also be applied to the principal dwelling unit. And the only one that we currently impose that's above and beyond what we impose on a regular dwelling is requirement that any exterior stairwells be covered, because currently there is no such requirement on a single-family home, but on the accessory dwelling unit we require that.
We
Is
could
that
u-
an aesthetic requirement?
We could easily require that on single-family homes
True.
and comply, right?
Why do we require that?
It seems like a snow thing.
It's, yeah, I'm just
Probably
curious.
safety
And I don't
for the-
disagree that safety, snow, it helps us. But why do we impose that on
Protects the integrity of the
only on
structure.
ADUs? But that's once again not our choice as a town to impose that on someone.
But not every single outside staircase needs a roof on every house.
I will.
But it's only on ADUs.
I just wonder what.
Right,
Yeah.
so
I
but
wonder what that derived from.
I think the thinking is that it's gonna be like a second story over a garage,
Mm-hmm.
and that it's gonna be a full flight of stairs, not like 2 steps down from a landing.
or a deck staircase.
Right.
That's away from
I
the
feel
house.
of two minds on this one. I feel for safety, like, it makes sense because it provides stairs that are not gonna be full of
Potentially
ice and
Ice,
snow.
yeah.
At the same time, looking around town and seeing them on some of our student rentals,
Yeah.
they are not always the most attractive structures.
That's true.
Well, it protects the structural integrity.
Like a covered bridge.
Yeah.
I mean, most of those structures are pressure treated anyway, but
Yeah, I mean, my family has a deck with a staircase, and it's not close to the house. Putting a roof over the staircase would be like
silly.
a silly and onerous cost.
Well, is it only if it's, Joseph?
Mhm.
And for an ADU, it's almost probably a non-issue. Is it only if it's like a primary egress as opposed to like a stairs to a deck?
It does not specify. I'll read the criteria here. So it doesn't say it. So let me just pull this up. Any exterior stairway leading to the ADU shall be covered or enclosed.
Leading to, we say leading to the main
So
entrance.
I understand the safety issue if it's, despite the
If it's the
aesthetic issues.
only- if it's
If it's
only-
your only way in and out of the
Yeah.
building.
Right.
On the other hand, I wouldn't want to mandate on that on someone's deck.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think.
I'm not sure that's an aesthetic concern though. I think
It may not.
That's what I mean. It doesn't
think that's
seem
a
like an
I think
aesthetic.
that's a safety concern.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's necessary. Like, so I'm thinking, like, what if you have 5 steps, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, say you're entering your house, right? There's like 5 steps going up, and then like say like a 6-foot walkway, like
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
just to get to the grade.
You
Yeah.
might have a
So
covered
then you're
porch
like,
with,
I need
with
to
steps
cover
off the
that?
front which aren't covered.
Like
There's a lot-
more like a stoop than a like actual stairway.
Right, but
Right,
it's
right.
more than it's more than 3 steps, so it needs a handrail
So-
or whatever that is.
I'm gonna make the executive decision here because I have the authority to do so. That there's no reason whoever made that up, whenever they did, would have made that up for aesthetic reasons
Yeah.
because they like the look of,
Yeah, I
of a
don't-
cover on your stairway.
I don't think
It,
it's an
it
aesthetic.
has to be for safety reasons.
I don't think it's an aesthetic requirement.
So I do not think that falls under the purview of aesthetics, and I have
It's a
spoken.
safety requirement, not an
and
aesthetic
you can take me to the Supreme Court.
No, I mean,
What's yours for?
The town's got deep pockets. You're not.
Yeah, just ask them.
Okay, I will say I was kidding about that.
Yeah.
Just for the
No,
record.
we get it.
I think I would support that concept.
Yeah,
What do we,
Yeah,
what do
so
we need
where
to
are we
do
now?
for this?
So we
what do you
we
want,
need
Joe?
we
What
need
What do
to
we need for this?
we need to change ADU from special exception to permitted in the single family.
So it's not just
Really,
a
that's it.
change to the use table.
Right, and we could, so there's another provision in the law that says you must allow conversion of an existing non-conforming accessory structure to an ADU, and there's nothing in our regs that expressly disallow that, but we could clarify that at the end of one of the criteria we have. That is to say, if you have a garage that is too close to the property line, within the setback, you would be allowed to convert that to an accessory dwelling unit as this law is written, whether or not it complies with current setbacks, as long as you don't make it more.
And presumably in our proposed zoning amendments, including the FRROD, does that currently have ADUs as a special exception?
I think it does.
Mirroring the village commercial?
The single family. Yep.
Single family, I mean, sorry.
So
yeah.
that FR.
That would need to be
That would
changed
have to be changed.
as well.
But the meat of the changes has to be permitted by right, and in fact,
Right.
that is effective. Actually, the law was written as effective July 1st. It was signed July 15th, so that is law today. This is not one of the ones that doesn't go into effect until after town meeting. We are sifting through that from a permitting perspective, and
Seems pretty cut and dry, it changes.
Check.
The
Our
law
law is
does,
no longer.
the law does
hold.
supersede local zoning. It is, typically, it's not appropriate for the town to directly, go in opposition to the local zoning ordinance, but I think in this case, it may be so clearly overridden by state law. But we are just trying to make sure we are 100% operating correctly, since it's kind of this limbo period where, on its face, our ordinance does not,
And I think the state has given guidance to that effect already.
So
So if it's allowed by, if someone, for example, has a garage that's non-conforming in, let's say, the older village section, it's allowed by right if they wanted to build an ADU on top of that garage, so they don't have to come to
or
us.
convert it.
Or convert it. They
Yeah.
don't have to come to us about it.
If it violates
GBA.
setbacks, if you've got a
Right.
garage that's within the setback and you could not build an ADU there, like, you could convert that non-conforming garage.
Right,
to
so
an
but
ADU.
that, in that situation, in that example, no one has to come to the planning board or zoning.
correct.
Right.
So special exception, conditional use permits cannot be required for an ADU, really in any circumstance, unless there's something else about it that's requiring it to get relief. So in that example, if there wasn't an existing non-conforming structure that you were building it in the footprint of, then you would still have to get a.
Yeah,
get
if they
a
were building something new.
exception,
yeah.
but generally, the answer would be they're permitted. It doesn't invalidate the requirements, so owner occupancy, size limits, everything that's spelt out in zoning today generally would still apply. It's just that they would have to be permitted. That's the big picture.
We have two things in our existing language about ADUs that are relevant to this. So one is under 2I, construction of the ADU shall meet all building code, life safety code guidance. That's not the part, this is the part. The architecture and design of the ADU shall reflect that of the primary residence. So that gets at the aesthetics, like you can't require aesthetics of the ADU that you don't require of the primary, and we already say
Okay, so we
it should
can-
be the same. The second one is J, the construction of the ADU shall not increase the non-conforming aspect of the existing structure. So, like, if you have something that's too close to the lot line, if you have a one-floor garage, you can't make the second floor cantilevered closer to that, not that
Another
lot
bay
line,
window.
right? Right.
Yeah.
So, like,
The old colonial style.
yeah,
Top is bigger than the bottom.
Yep.
cantilevered, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's interesting, and we have, just looking at the regulations we have, we're already accommodating some of these.
Pretty well. How far we've come with ADUs in just a few years.
I know, right?
All right, Joseph, on to the next, if you're comfortable with that, moving on.
Absolutely. So, 457, restrictions on the local ability to impose occupancy limitations. So, this change to state law states that no ordinance may be enforced which restricts the number of occupants of a dwelling unit to less than 2 occupants per bedroom, or which is based on familial or non-familial relationships, among other characteristics. But that's the relevant one here. So Plymouth's zoning has 2 definitions of a family. One is a related family and one is an unrelated family. In Plymouth's zoning, a related family is any number of people who are related, largely. An unrelated family is any group of 3 or fewer people who are not related and live together as a housekeeping unit. So the zoning ordinance currently differentiates in terms of occupancy between a unit occupied by people who are related and those who are not. That does need to change under this statute. That needs to be consolidated into one definition of family that does not differentiate between related or unrelated.
Can I point out that our provision on Section 2D of ADUs says our ADU shall not include more than 2 bedrooms, nor shall it be occupied by more than 2 adults per ADU. I think we would have to change that to
agree.
allow for up to 4 adults, right?
That's correct. Yeah, I didn't catch
Wow.
that, but that's a good point. It definitely would invalidate that.
It's a
And
lot of people.
So
It is.
In a small
In
space.
a less than 1,000 square feet.
Yeah.
the other piece would be that
We would have to allow for that. I mean, but that's the stat, I mean, the size, we limit the size to 1,000 square feet. But if you really want to build, what I was just thinking of is if you want to build an ADU that's bigger than 1,000 square feet, we allow for co-located residences on the same lot. If you can
Site
meet,
plan review, right?
what's that?
Is it through site plan review to do that?
I
through a
forget.
conditional use permit.
Through a conditional use permit, so like you could make a 1,200 square foot, 3-bedroom accessory dwelling unit via conditional use permit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Detached. So interestingly, for the conditional use permit, we do require minimum separation for fire protection. The ADU, we do not. Although, I mean, the general protection about building code, life safety code guidance, that could require minimum building
It's also
separation, but it's up to the code enforcement officer.
It's also one of the reasons why it's small, right? 1,000 square feet.
Yeah. But I
And
mean,
building codes do catch some of that, but I don't have the information to say exactly. And it
usually falls into land use codes though. Like usually if the building code deals with it by saying if there's less than this fire separation, like you have to have a firewall.
Yep,
Or the entire
absolutely.
enclosure has to be built to a 1-hour standard, but,
Absolutely.
or sprinkled, like it I don't know.
I have a question. I have a question about a phrase and why. I know you can't read minds, but I'm not sure if anybody's talked about why this was included.
Yep.
Among other characteristics, why was that phrase included in here?
That's my phrase. So I don't.
That's your paraphrasing.
So
So
I
this
am
is-
paraphrasing that they include other characteristics
Such as?
in the law. So I'll read them out here.
Okay.
So such legislative body shall not adopt any ordinance based on the familial or non-familial relationships or marital status, occupation, employment status, or the educational status, including but not limited to scholastic enrollment or academic achievement at any level among the occupants of the dwelling unit, including but not limited to college students, and the governing body thereof shall not enforce any such ordinance.
So this is all about college
College
students.
students.
It-
It means
it
that you
is.
can't, let me see if I have this right. In your zoning ordinance, you can't say, well, you can't have more than 3 college students living together.
Correct. that's,
for example, which we don't
Un-
say that
unless they
in
all
our
have,
student
unless they all are on Dean's list.
We just kind
Unless
of,
they're all, yeah, unless they're all honor students,
right,
and
we
then it's
cannot say
fine.
that. So yes, we actually do say that essentially in our zoning ordinance.
Okay.
but not in those exact words.
So it does, right, and that's why I say among other characteristics, because the one that's relevant to Plymouth is familial or non-familial status. If there are,
Yeah.
if the people living in a single-family home are related, you can have any number as long as life safety codes are met. If those people are not related, you can only have 3, regardless of the size of the dwelling. So that is differentiating between.
This was a town that changed at a certain college town, not this one, was very strongly opposed to.
Correct. I don't know that there has been a lot of, yeah, I can't say. It wasn't, I don't think this was targeted at Plymouth.
Yeah.
But, I do think it impacts us directly, and we need to comply with it. And the other thing that we need to do, so special exception criteria, there are some uses that have additional criteria beyond the 6. One of those are multifamily, or sorry, residential uses in the village commercial zone, which of course only applies to ground floor residential uses because other residential uses are permitted by right. But that has 2 of the extra special exception criteria say, for units occupied by a related family, 2 parking spaces per unit shall be provided. For units occupied by an unrelated family, 1 parking space per bedroom shall be provided. So those are some of the additional criteria which are saying, in effect, you have to provide a different amount of parking depending on whether you're going to be renting to people who are related or not. And
So if there's students, we provide even more glorious
Parking.
real estate for cars.
We require that the landlord provide more parking.
so those criteria, those additional residential uses on the ground floor in the village commercial zone, the board could look at those criteria in more detail and rethink them, or think about whether they're all still relevant, or we could just strike the ones that deal with whether you're related or not.
But
and
in-
comply.
In one apartment, one year you could have a married couple, and the next year you could have 2 unmarried people, and
That
the
is-
parking spaces stay the same.
That is the problem with this, the way this
Yeah.
is written today. I think that
I mean, frankly, I don't care who's in the building necessarily and how they're related to one another. If they choose to live together and cohabit, that is
Right.
fine with me.
Right.
And, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
if people are happy cohabiting together, let them. I don't want to regulate how they live their personal lives in their building.
No, it shouldn't be. In a lot of other countries, multi-generational,
What is that? Yeah.
non-related people, like,
Yeah.
live in the same household.
Yeah.
It's true.
Okay, so we have to address those special exceptions.
there are 2 other additional criteria, which are the facade, including windows, shall be residential in character, and that window signs are not permitted in the windows of residential units. So those are the 4 criteria that are additionally required to have ground floor residential in the village commercial. So 2 of those deal with parking and differentiate. So one way or another, those first 2 need to be addressed.
Can we just take those 2 parking things out of the ordinance?
Yeah. Certainly could.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's really relevant.
What did I miss over there? There's a lot of smiling.
I did not mean to talk. Let it be known to all, it is freezing over this thing.
Oh, yeah.
And I just leaned over to Sue and said,
Which part?
You'll have to bring a coat next time.
I know why you
So-
don't want to sit here
I'm
anymore.
in snow pants.
I know.
You notice
It is really cold over there.
The man.
No, I'm serious. I have to sit there myself. It's cold.
Yeah, it is a little chilly down this end. I was thinking that hot humid weather was pretty nice.
Are there blankets in there?
Sue's wearing the exact same thing she wears in December
Oh, yeah, I see.
in here. It's so funny.
I got the
No,
map,
no, all,
Just here, pick up your chair for a minute.
but it doesn't.
I got goosebumps going up my neck by the
Yeah.
time. So I was like,
You're right on the vent.
I'm
Yeah,
like, wow, it's
yeah.
a little chilly over here. How's it out there over that side anyway? Is it warm or?
I've got a breeze coming
I
right
feel for you.
here.
I don't.
That's why I have
As long
my
as I
shirt
have the
on.
mat.
oh, much better.
The mat?
There's a mat that's
Not
over here. and
the
I-
mat.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
I don't know, Matt.
Back to business.
my water's cold.
Where in
Cold air is good for
our
virility.
ordinance do we regulate the unrelated 3 persons? Where is that?
That is the definition of family. So we define a dwelling unit, for example, a single-family dwelling unit, as a dwelling unit occupied by one family. And then we define family in two different ways, depending on whether that family is related or unrelated.
see.
So that's how the town, kind of in an indirect way, through definitions, regulates how many unrelated people can live together.
Family related, any number of persons related by blood or by marriage.
I don't like that.
It's a,
Well, it's,
Yeah. I mean, what?
we have
Very
to
old
we
school,
have
if
to
you will.
change it now anyway.
yeah,
Right.
So
let's,
just
Right.
Yeah.
Let's just
get
change
rid of
it.
Yeah.
Married or not, somebody could change their marital status just to comply. People do crazier things.
That's true.
This is a 2 occupants per bedroom, pretty much is what it boils down to.
I think we should put some language in here to get at gender too. Kidding.
Bill?
Sorry.
right then. What's next?
Let's move on.
Right along.
Sure, just so you're satisfied with that, we will.
Definitely. Let's check out the next one here, which is SB 284.
take a-
Oh, and so I should say that last piece, that last one we just discussed, goes into effect 60 days after signature. Signature was July 15th. That goes into effect 60 days after July 15th.
So there may actually be enforcement activities that have to change before we can change zoning.
Yeah.
Agreed, and it will be a
We
bit
don't
of
really
a
enforce it anyway, do we?
Well, the town does.
I thought the town was mostly kind of staying quiet in that one because it was an issue.
So I'll say that the town in general is not able to aggressively police how many people live in a dwelling unit all the time and what their status is. I can't say that the town has never taken action, but in practice, it's very hard to enforce or police how many people in a dwelling are related or not. So I can't say the town hasn't taken action, but I can say this is a complicated one to enforce, whether the town wanted to or not.
If somebody really wanted to,
You have to sit outside the door.
there's
towns
nothing,
will
I mean, when
anyway.
we talk about family, there's nothing that prevents somebody from hiring a genealogist to go back 10 generations and say, oh no, we're 32nd, whatever, we're 32nd cousins.
Yeah, it's,
Like you could, like that's family, right? Like, if you go back far enough, we're all family.
True.
SB 284.
Sky's the limit.
Except Matt.
Cut from a different cloth. SB 280.
Parking is the main piece of
Trying to
this
keep this
one.
fun.
SB 284 states that no more than one parking space may be required for a residential dwelling unit. So, implications for Plymouth.
For a single residential dwelling unit.
Correct. So
Wow.
Plymouth currently requires 2 spaces for most residential uses. ADUs only require 1, for example, but we will need to comply. This is a maximum minimum, so it says that the town may not require more than 1. There are,
But we can prohibit on-street parking.
so it doesn't deal directly with on-street parking requirements, because those would be sort of a
Right.
separate body of regulation. But it is worth noting that last year, there was a law change that allowed for off-site parking for residential uses in certain cases.
Right.
So there may be situations where this does interplay with that previous change, but this one, in its most basic form, really just says you can't require more than 1. There's
And
a-
many builders will still put in more than one to
Right.
provide for their people who want that for whatever
It's a
reason.
bit of a market control.
Yeah.
But if you have a builder who wants to provide 1 parking spot, we have to approve them.
Yeah.
You have to allow it.
And if somebody moves in with a second car, they're gonna park on the lawn or find space or be on the sidewalk or wherever it is that we're trying to dissuade them from parking, right?
right. It
Yes.
could cause issues.
And there are other avenues to deal with that. Like currently in some zones, at least, you're not allowed to park on your lawn, including single-family residential and maybe others.
But good luck enforcing that.
You can though. I mean, it's in there to
And if you
actually.
park on your lawn long enough, it's not long.
So there's one wrinkle in this I would like to point out, which is that our zoning ordinance currently places a cap on the number of parking spaces you can provide in certain zones as it relates to your required amount of parking, and that is in certain zones you are not allowed to have more than 125% of your required number of parking spaces. So this is actually very directly related to this bill because as written in the single-family residential zone, you can have a two-family by special exception, but it would require a variance to provide 3 or 4 parking spaces for that two-family.
You actually have to get rid of that
Wait.
125%.
No, or can we simply say that it only applies to, or does not apply to any residential properties?
So that would be the so I mentioned in my memo that there's a couple of things you could do. You could say that it only applies to non-residential parking facilities, and you could say that it only applies to parking facilities where the requirement is over a certain number of parking spaces. So if you were required 500 spaces, you could still impose this requirement, but you could put a cap on the number of spaces.
Where's the 125%
It's
parking
in
thing?
Article 4, Section 411, off-street parking, and it states that in the CI, VC, HC, or ICD zone, the zoning board of adjustment may grant a special exception for a parking facility with more than 125% of the minimum number of parking spaces under Section 411.2. So you could say
Under
that only
411.
applies to parking facilities where the requirement would be 40 or more spaces. You could say it only applies to non-residential. You could say it only applies to non-residential where the requirement would be 40 or more. Or that's 40 is just a number. It doesn't.
But if we're now, like, if in single-family dwelling, detached and attached, two-family dwelling, where it's currently, we require 2 spaces per dwelling unit, if we have to reduce that to 1, and you cannot have more than 125%, it means you can no longer park 2 cars in
You
a
have
single-family
one and a
home.
quarter parking
Correct.
spaces.
Right.
Yes.
Which is a challenge. And that 125%,
Kids, spouses.
Right.
You can have 1.25 cars. And,
and that 125%.
Is that a motor- can you park a motorcycle on a quarter
because
mile? It might
of
be
very
whatever
large
you
commercial
want.
facilities.
Maybe
So
a unicycle.
not really intended, I think, for
Right.
small residential uses, but think Walmart. If their requirement is 600, it really does use up a lot of real estate, create a lot of impervious surface, a lot more ground impact if they were going
they
to
go to
provide
1,000.
double what they want, what they were required to provide. So it's really, I think the intention was to prevent way oversized, sort of speculative commercial parking
Well,
facilities.
this actually became an issue with the last chair, didn't it? They
Did.
wanted to provide like 200% or something.
Yes.
With what?
The last chair.
Oh, the last chair.
Oh, interesting.
This
thought you
really
were talking
doesn't. Single-family duplexes, like, it's not meant to.
I think we need to
My
go through
interpretation.
table 411.2 and actually, we're gonna have to heavily revise that whole table to comply with this.
Yes, we will need to change all residential uses, and we will need, I believe, I think it would be very important to think about that 125%, because as you said, a
Yeah.
single-family dwelling or a two-family dwelling could not provide, say, two.
Yeah, a single-family would be a car and a unicycle, if you're going by
Right.
wheels.
Unicycle.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
One and a quarter.
True. That's right.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I think your comment, John.
I think we
about,
need-
Stop writing that.
He's warming up.
Yeah.
This is good.
Sorry, Joseph. Sorry.
No, it's
I could do the
We're
unicycle.
trying, we're
discussion.
trying to make sure that people who actually spend time watching these videos are somewhat amused, so that trying to give them some
Yeah, so
feedback.
that table does need to be reworked.
Yeah.
And I don't think it'll take much, but to really go through it. And this is effective 60 days out, so
So-
October.
Correct, and so there could be scenarios where if someone applies for a residential development, the town theoretically cannot require more than 1 space per unit. Though again, in this interim period where our zoning is not updated to comply, we're seeking clarification on the best way to proceed in this intervening period, because we just want to be careful that we're acting appropriately. Because as town staff, for example, Tom and myself, we generally can't just say the zoning ordinance, we're going to not abide by it, not observe it.
So like if somebody comes in, let's say in November or whatever, and tries to build a single-family house with 2 parking spaces,
They can. Well, no.
No,
If-
because it would be only one space per unit, but our 125 still applies. Cause that's not changed by the, it's not overridden.
Right, true.
So what do you do then? Do you just overlook it and like ignore the zoning ordinance because it's absurd, or do you get a variance which hopefully would be granted because it's a extenuating circumstance of some sort?
Or does the zoning ordinance, from the town perspective, do we say the zoning ordinance still applies, but you don't have to follow it? I mean, we're seeking some clarification on this, and I hope we'll know more soon, because this is very hot off the presses, and this once we get to the point where these are in effect, but there is no zoning amendment that actually makes our zoning comply with these, it will be a little bit of a strange situation.
I mean, it'll mean like almost everyone's house will be non-compliant.
Well,
Which is fine, because they're grandfathered at this point.
I know, but
existing
just, you know.
non-conforming uses can continue.
I would hope they would have taken this into consideration.
Yeah.
So they should have an answer for you. on what-
Yeah, we'll
This
definitely
is
try to
an
get some
Do
clarification.
you think
I
the House
said
of Representatives
you
took this into
should.
consideration?
So you should.
Or not the House of Representatives, the State House, whatever.
Non-conforming uses can be
Being
continued.
You're very
optimistic,
optimistic.
That's all.
So yeah, the big picture though, I think the easy part of this is we need to change that table of parking requirements
Yeah.
so that we don't require more than one space per residential unit in any case. And then we need to think about the 125% requirement, and certainly,
Tailoring it.
yeah, there are a lot of ways we could kind of address that and make it not unworkable or practically impossible to
It makes sense in many scenarios,
It
but
does.
not in this one.
right. And I think that's why just specifically thinking about how it what it applies to is really kind of going to be
Given the
key.
cost of asphalt and site work, I'm not sure that there are many businesses that are gonna be eager to build 200% of their required parking. Like, parking is expensive.
Yeah, and it's usually built, and when building out, it's what's the minimum amount of parking I need to meet this
Yeah.
requirement.
But as we've seen though, there are like restaurants that say like, wow, we could be slammed and like, we wanna have extra parking. And we had an application come that tried to do that.
I think it makes sense to have some
Which
limit.
was dirt and not paved, so it makes sense.
Fair enough.
The excavator's already there.
The other day, I went to Walmart and the parking lot was full. I had to park out by the automotive.
That's wild.
Really?
That's
I've never seen
really
it full.
crazy.
Couldn't find a
Was
place
it
to
that
park.
hot day? They were probably trying
Yeah,
to get the
everyone-
AC.
Place to park.
That place was
Everyone's just
packed.
hanging out inside. I mean, kind of.
Just
I went there,
sit here
and
instead.
I turned around and went home, I'm not even going in there.
You should sell the seat on a hot day.
It's really fun.
$10 an hour.
It's
What?
really hot. I'm going to Walmart.
I'm sure that. I'm
Oh
sure.
no, what they think.
No, I'm sure plenty of people do that. I'm sure.
All right,
They leave the doors
SB.
Never go there, so. Moving right along, Joseph's needs to
Could've gone to
get
the
this
library. There was
Joseph, you
cooling
satisfied
center
with
was
parking
open.
for now?
Sure, yeah. I can move on to the next one if you'd like.
You have enough guidance on where you think we'll be
Yeah,
taking this
and-
before.
Definitely, I can give some, put some time into giving the board back something for food for thought, if the board would like that. We can also talk about that after, how the board, if the board wants to kind of talk about these, think about them a little more before we start drafting, or if you want, based on this discussion, a really high-level draft that the board can kind of accept, push back on, work with. Either way is fine.
Okay.
But the next one is two bills that I've included together because they deal with the same RSA, which is 674:41, and this is the section of state law that deals with building or development on non-planning board private roads and Class 6 roads. So for those who aren't aware, maybe in the community or anything like that, a Class 6 road is a public way, a town right-of-way, town road, that the town has no obligation or ability really to maintain or keep passable. So it is a public way, but it is not maintained in any way. So occasionally folks do want to build on these roads, and under this statute previously, the process for building on these types of roads required first getting a review and comment from the planning board, and then going to the select board, and the select board actually had to authorize building. That is no longer the process. Once all that happened, under the old version of the RSA, the applicant had to record a waiver of liability at the Registry of Deeds alongside their deed that says they waive all municipal liability for police, fire, ambulance, road maintenance, bus service, and acknowledging that they know that those are not guaranteed services for building on a Class 6 road. This new law says basically you don't have to go through the planning board or select board. As long as you file that waiver at the Registry of Deeds, you can build on a Class 6 road. You just have to waive that municipal liability.
Still need a building permit,
You
though.
do, yep, but it wouldn't be reviewed by the select board. And so, the other piece is the non-planning board private roads, which are treated distinctly under the statute from planning board approved private roads. So, planning board approved private roads were a part of a subdivision. The planning board reviewed them against the subdivision road specs. Reservoir Heights, Chatterin Lane, Crescent Street, those are planning board approved private roads. There are some private roads in New Hampshire, even in Plymouth, not many, but a few, that predate any of those processes, and they are often hard to define. They're often old. They really go back a ways. But under the previous statute, you had to go through the same process for those as you did for Class 6 roads. Under this new change, it's actually a very subtle change for this one. Instead of going to the so historically, you go to the planning board, you get a review and comment, then you go to the select board, they have to approve your building permit, and then you have to record the waiver. This says instead of going to the planning board first, the select board could adopt a policy under which they approve building permits on these old pre-planning board private roads. Then you would just go straight to the select board. They would review your request, not against the advice of the planning board, but against their own adopted policy, and then they could approve you or deny you, and then you would record your waiver.
Can you back up a little bit? Talk again about subdivisions on these roads?
So subdivision on these roads is a really interesting question, and these roads by definition are not roads that were approved as part of a subdivision or were built to subdivision spec. So if a subdivision request came in on one of these private roads, the planning board would need to review that as if there was a brand new road being constructed typically. So you would need to review, because these are roads, but they're not roads that were built to any spec established by the town. The right-of-way may or may not be defined.
What if it's an existing private road and somebody's just cutting lots off of it? None of those lots technically have any frontage. I mean, if they're not on a public road, they don't meet frontage requirements, right?
Well, that is often the case in Plymouth. Frontage can be on a private road in Plymouth, but
Can it?
It can,
Okay.
as written. So if you look, you have to go to the definition of frontage.
Okay.
And I'll
Interesting.
pull that up, which is a complication with this and really needs to be considered, because that does have implications if someone had a lot with limited frontage. So frontage is defined as the width of a lot measured along its common boundary with the street line. And so street line is defined as right-of-way line of a street dedicated by a deed of record. Where the width of the street is not established, the street line shall be considered to be 25 feet from the center line of street pavement. So it doesn't specify that the street line has to be along a public way, but under subdivision regulations, if you're subdividing, the frontage has to be on a road that meets subdivision spec, unless you get a waiver, which the planning board does have the jurisdiction to grant waivers and has granted waivers certainly in the past. So if someone brought in a subdivision request on an old deeded right-of-way that they were calling a private road, that was an old private road, that was only 20 feet wide, that doesn't meet, the road access to those lots may not meet subdivision regulations. So unless they got a waiver for, say, the width of the right-of-way, it wouldn't meet subdivision spec, but it may meet the zoning, or the lots may meet the zoning. The other thing that's important to think about here is that if a subdivision were proposed on a Class 6 road, currently there would still generally need to be that select board approval process.
I thought the planning board still had authority over subdivisions on class 6 roads.
They do, but the building on those lots that were the subdivided lots would be under this new process. It would be kind of expedited.
So subdivision can still be limited on class 6 roads.
It would have to, so yes, it can be if the planning board determines that such subdivision would be scattered and premature, which the
Right.
board does have.
Which is in statute.
Right, it is, and the board has the authority to say, this would be scattered and premature to allow this subdivision, but the board would have to be really thoughtful if such a development were proposed about making sure that we really go through whether or not it is scattered and premature, for example, or whether it could be enabling pretty intensive development along Class 6 Road. I mean, it's also worth thinking about the Class 6 roads that exist in town, what's the zoning along them, where are they located?
Do we have any of these non-planning board approved private roads?
I'm aware of one, Thompson Farm Lane, which is off Quincy Road. We may recall there
Oh.
was a boundary line adjustment a few
Yeah.
years ago out there.
Yeah.
That's the only one I'm
It was a
aware
hot button issue. There was a lot for sale for a while, a couple of years
Yes.
ago.
It was quite a,
It was controversial.
it was, and that boundary line adjustment was because the lot actually seemed to have no frontage.
Yeah.
So they adjusted the boundary to give it frontage along this old pre-planning board private road, so it could have been built upon under this statute, but not.
So I want to come back to the class 6 roads and building on class 6 roads. So many towns have incremental development standards that are enforced by the select board, where if in the past you would have to go to the select board and say, I'd like to build on this class 6 road. I own the next parcel past the last house that was built, and they would allow incremental development up a class 6 road to the next undeveloped parcel. And if that one was developed, then the next parcel could be developed. So my understanding of this now is that anybody who has an existing lot on a class 6 road can build on it regardless of the incremental previous lots, right?
Mhm.
So somebody with a 2-acre lot in the middle of Binks Hill Road could now plop a house down on it and say,
Yep.
I'm just gonna use this class 6 road as my driveway.
As long as they waive municipal liability and record that waiver, then yes, that's accurate. Effective in 60 days from July 15th. And so this is a policy that is in part carried out by the planning board. This doesn't actually reside in zoning, but the planning board has a role in it, or used to
Right.
have a role in this process. And the reason I bring it up as having implications for the planning board is because generally it will change how these items, which traditionally have gone before the planning board, will likely not as often anymore, unless it's a pre-planning board private road, in which case they may still go before the planning board, unless the select board were to adopt a policy that says otherwise.
So we did have a subdivision approval, a request for subdivision on a class 6 road last year. So if that came back to us, we wouldn't be forced to change that
I don't
decision.
think so.
Yeah.
It is the width of the road, but that was the big, what was that, the big hang up on
It was-
that?
They didn't have frontage. I mean, they wanted to use the road as it was,
Yeah, so they didn't,
as a private road, basically.
right, they didn't have frontage on a road that met subdivision spec.
Right.
Which, if it were a public road, arguably it would not have had to. That is an improved public street. It wasn't an existing improved public street. The road, however, didn't meet subdivision spec for things like the traveled way width, the right-of-way width. So that was
Width
kind
was
of
a
the
problem.
key.
And we told them that, and it never came back.
Yeah.
They
So-
got it.
If that had come back under this new regulation, how would that look?
Same.
Arguably similar, except that,
Because it's the subdivision that they were saying.
Subdivision
I mean,
standards
they could still put a house on the one lot.
Yep.
It's going to the three. Like they were-
Yeah.
right, unless the planning board waived things like road width, things like the drainage.
They do
things-
multiple units on a single lot.
Drainage was a big issue.
Well,
Oh, they
if it's
could.
allowed under zoning, then
Yeah.
I would say that there is nothing in this
That's
law
my family's
that
old quarry.
limits which uses you can
Had-
build,
they
as
owned
long
a
as you
Loon
have
Lake
that
Granite
waiver.
Company.
Right.
So it is important to think about what the zoning of these class 6 roads are because of that there's no caveat. It doesn't say one single family home. It says you may
Build.
build. Now,
Right.
a special exception, if something's a special exception, would you be likely to get approved for a special exception on a class 6 road? For an intensive development, probably not so likely, but if it's something that, you know, it doesn't rule out the possibility.
So my only, I think this is fine in most ways, and because they're basically signing their rights away anyway to any public services.
Yep.
My only concern would be like in a larger subdivision or even multiple units on a single lot, that owners can sometimes be deceptive and realtors have either been uninformed or deceptive in the past. For example, up on like the hill over there,
Yeah.
where they were saying you're on public, utilities and you weren't.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's any way of triggering like an enforcement that like all residents need to be informed that they're living under these circumstances.
That's, I mean,
Because like, let's say you own a property with multiple units on a single lot and you rent out one of those units to someone else. I don't know that you're mandated to tell your renter that they have no services and that they can't call or they can call an ambulance, but they might not come. And that would be my biggest concern. Like, I say fine if you want to waive your rights, great. But what about if you are in like with multiple families or something on a lot or multiple units on a single lot? Does everyone have to know and agree to these same conditions? I don't think they do, as long as the owner does.
The
And
And I don't know how you can
Yeah.
enforce, I mean, that's,
it's a concern though. If like if
It's a
you
concern,
if you
but
rent
I
from
just don't know
somebody
how
and
you can-
you don't even know this because they didn't tell you, right? And you die because an ambulance can't get to you.
Eastern Corners, that was a huge issue. What they weren't a renter was the homeowner, but the ambulance wouldn't cross the bridge.
Yeah.
what are you talking about?
It was 10 or 15 years ago in Campton.
Yeah.
There's a section of Campton called Eastern Corners. And it's a class 6 road with houses past it. And there's 2 bridges that go across it.
And the ambulance
And someone
couldn't
had a heart
cross.
attack
Oh.
on the other side of the bridge in one of the houses. And the ambulance wouldn't cross the bridge. But they were notified. They said, hey, if something happens out here,
We'll
we're
walk
not
up.
coming across that bridge.
Yeah.
The ambulance won't. They might walk.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like the.
So-
Yeah, but it's slow.
and this was
I
before.
think they put in a new bridge, didn't they?
No, there's still the existing old bridges.
So the town of Bradford, before I was on that planning board, it was like the year before I came on that planning board, they approved a subdivision where there was a private bridge that served a single house, and then they subdivided that other lot into 3. The developer, the owner, provided a waiver that said, we understand that fire and ambulance service may not be available, and recorded that on the deeds, and one of the buyers of one of those parcels sued the town and the developer and won.
What?
So waivers are not always like, so someone who bought a parcel
Yeah.
that was accessible across that bridge, even though there was a deed restriction that clearly stated, ambulance and fire service may not be available at your home. They would get to the bridge and use off-highway firefighting equipment as much as they could, but like, they can't get an ambulance to your driveway if there's a medical issue. Like, the homeowners sued the town and won. Like, so.
How?
I wonder how if it was in their deed.
Yeah,
What's that?
how?
I wonder how if it was
If
in
it was
their
in the
deed.
Yeah,
deed.
how do they?
So
It had to have
the
been
court
something else.
the court found that like the agreement between the town and the developer,
Also went back to that.
was
Okay.
not.
So were they made to build a bridge or something to change it so they
I don't
couldn't?
know what the story was. I don't know if the
I'm
developer
just
had to buy
curious.
the house back from the people, what the deal was.
Yeah, okay.
So it was the
But
original deal
It was a
between the
private
town.
bridge that wasn't rated, it wasn't
Okay.
engineered. I mean, if they put in a bridge that was engineered to road standards and met the E2 rating, like they could drive, the fire department would drive a
Right.
fire truck across it.
Right.
All right.
But if you have a private bridge, there's no obligation to endanger public fire protection equipment to go over it. I mean, that's not that different than these
But it's
class
just
6
making
roads.
sure that the waiver legally states, and the
Yeah, I mean,
waiver, that's where
it's
they
in,
went back
but
to.
if
with the
this is in
waiver.
statute, it has to be, I mean, as long as somebody signs that waiver, that's, if it's in statute, it's now protected.
Hopefully must.
But I mean, a bridge might be different too.
This is also, the good part about this is, without having the select board approve it, that liability might not fall on the town
That's
anymore.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was just looking, I know there are a couple of class 6 roads. There's Chase On Road, there's Binks Hill Road. I don't see many lots on
Pike
Binks Hill
Hill.
Road, but
Yeah.
Pike Hill has a ton of
Lots.
People that want to
existing
build.
lots.
Yeah, yeah.
And now they'll be able to get building permits out there,
Yeah, absolutely.
regardless. Like there's a couple dozen lots on Pike Hill Road.
It's a busy spot.
And the end of Thurlow Street is the other one, that
Right.
past the portion,
You mean Old Stagecoach?
so, yes, Old Stagecoach Road and Thurlow Street Extension are not exactly the same road.
Yeah,
so,
no, Stagecoach is like here.
Right. So, Old Stagecoach Road was built as a part of an agreement to allow folks to get building permits with their frontage being on a Class 6 road. So their frontage legally is on the Class 6 portion of Thurlow Street Extension, but their access is via a privately built and maintained Old Stagecoach Road, which was built to a certain spec. And so it was a part of a agreement, basically, to get those building permits between the select board and the owners. And this was many years ago.
May I ask a tangential question, Chair? Since we seem to be going tangentially anyway.
Can he continue with this comment?
Oh.
Please continue one more.
Oh, you
No,
have more?
I
Oh.
think that's,
Oh,
no,
if
no,
you-
that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say it.
Um,
Please.
There was a petition going around a couple of years ago, or maybe more, to change the name of Thurlow Street.
Oh, really?
Did that die and like never go anywhere, I guess?
I had heard that there was some discussion about it, and I never heard anything further.
Okay.
So I'm guessing, no, I don't know, though. I don't have any information on the status of that.
I know it was controversial among some people.
Oh, yeah, I've been up
Mhm.
there.
Like the people felt really strongly like
Why
both
did they want
ways.
to change the name of it?
What's that?
Why did they want to change
Yeah,
the
why?
They
name?
wanted to change it to I think to Old Stagecoach Road like the whole way.
Oh yeah, because it's like Thurlow's here, and then it becomes Stagecoach here.
Yeah.
Thurlow is just basically from Warren Street, and then Langdon, that intersection of Texas Hill, Langdon, Warren.
And then there were others who really felt strongly about like the Thurlow family and
Oh,
stuff.
I see.
And so and it was like a big discussion for a while. Then it kind of died out, and never heard about it again. I guess it didn't go anywhere.
I don't have any information on it, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Sorry to go on a tangent, but like
Oh, that's,
I seem to have plenty of them tonight.
So, next on the list, if you're all set to move along.
If you're all ready.
Of course. So, House Bill 413, vesting and timeline for active and substantial development. This one is a little bit in the weeds, but right now, under state law, as long as you begin active and substantial development, imagining a site plan, this is really where this mostly applies. On a site plan that's approved by the planning board, if you begin active and substantial development within 2 years of your approval, your project is vested against changes in the zoning for 5 years. So this law changes that. If you begin active and substantial development within 3 years, your project is vested against changes in zoning for 7 years. So that's change number one. And that, we do mirror that language in our site plan review regulations. We would need to update that to comply. A planning board can amend the site plan regs, but those currently use the 2-year, 5-year, and they would need to be updated to 3-7. And interesting note about that part, this applies retroactively to any approval granted on or after July 1st, 2023. There is a project approved before that, or I suppose I should say after that, that was, say, that was within that 2-year period. They may potentially have another year to begin active and substantial development and then get a 7-year vesting.
So it'd be the hotel.
The hotel we approved, like if they decided not to start construction of the like they've started active and substantial because they've done site work, but they
The
haven't.
site work was actually a separate site plan.
Yeah.
True.
So they have
but
some more
revi-
time.
Didn't
to
they
actually
revise
build.
it when they came to us with the hotel?
Are they
plan?
gonna move forward?
No, I don't think they did.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything to the contrary.
They still have time.
But I mean, that site plan
Mountain Village.
revision that we
What about that
approved for
charter
the
school?
hotel, like
Yeah.
they could extend that out 10 years now. If they came, if we change zoning in that area, they have until 10 years to build what they had proposed before, like, if they went to year 11, we could say, oh no, you didn't build it right, and now you have to change the zoning.
And the other
That's crazy.
The other note is that it doesn't deal with the conditions. So we do have right now our timeline is you have 1 year to meet your conditions and then 2 years to begin active and substantial. So it doesn't mention a timeline for meeting of conditions.
Conditions.
So if someone didn't meet, but the planning board can always impose different timelines at the time of approval. The planning board should
Conditions.
say you have 3 years, because that's out of site plan, not out of state law.
So is the attempt here to address the fact that, like, conditions, it takes the same amount of time now as it did like 10 years ago for pretty much to meet your conditions, whereas there's been a lot of developers complaining about cost overruns and lack of certain supplies, and this kind of covers them for that for some very long period of time now, to actually get all that together. I assume that's
You mean
why.
like a supply chain issue?
Yeah, so I'm guessing that's why they wouldn't
could be.
change meeting conditions, which is not affected by that, but they would change development time.
Could be. And, it's, the other piece of this law, which is, again, a little bit into the weeds, but is important. In communities where the Zoning Board of Adjustment serves as the Building Code Board of Appeals, which is the case here in Plymouth, if you have a building code dispute, you would appeal that to the zoning board. That is now only the case if you are appealing a building code decision related to a local amendment to the state building code. Any other building code appeals now go to the state building code review board. So that's a pretty significant change.
Wow.
And
So they have to leave Plymouth to go.
they have to go to the state BCRB, and whereas
That was
previously,
defunded.
No, the Housing Appeals Board was
oh,
defunded.
the housing,
Yeah,
yes.
the building code
And that's,
review.
no, not completely, they partially
Wow.
defunded it. So now there's 2 members, which is a great number of people to have on a board that has to make decisions.
Don't get sidetracked.
Ooh, wow.
But yeah, it's certainly a change, and right now
The housing appeals
I'd
board?
have to defer to Tom, but I'm not aware of any locally adopted amendments to the state building code. I don't.
We could, I mean,
Could.
the Energy Commission debated proposing an amendment similar to what Durham does, which is that as soon as an energy code is published, it becomes code for the town.
Yeah, we could.
Because the Building Code Review Board regularly shoots holes in the effectiveness of energy regulations, the towns like Durham have said whatever code is for the energy code at the time becomes code for this town as soon as it's published. So, I mean, there are numerous amendments to the adoption of the building code that the state adopts that make it less effective. And towns can choose to stick to the model code. So that's one thing that wouldn't be appealed to this building code review board. That's an example of something that could be adopted by town that wouldn't be but anything else that's in code, like, would be.
Yeah, and that's a pretty, although I will say, in the time that I've been here, which is
Yeah.
a little under 4 years, we haven't had a single building code appeal. So I don't know that this will be used a lot, but the times that it would be used, it is a change. And I do need to note that other administrative appeals related to the zoning ordinance, for example, still appealable to the zoning board. This is specifically building code appeals.
I had a debate with Tom last summer about a state building code issue that I might have, had I known this, I might have, if it happened again, I might have gone to the building code review board with it.
And, it would be effective immediately, because the law went into effect July 1st of
Yeah.
2025.
Interesting.
And was signed on the 15th, so it is in effect now.
Yeah.
And then, I happy to, folks wanna discuss that more.
No, that's
before
it.
I go
No,
next.
I don't, that's not gonna have much of impact on us, but it's interesting to know.
change something.
It's a
in
big
our-
shift that I think
Yeah.
will have
Well, I
minimal,
mean, it takes-
minimal impact, big shift.
It takes the lift off, it takes responsibility off the shoulders of the ZBA.
Does-
Puts it on the
that's true.
State Building Code Review Board.
Do we have to edit our legislation in any way for that?
I do not believe we need to make any zoning changes
Okay.
because,
We don't deal with building codes.
Yeah, that's okay.
yeah, building code, so it's under statute, that building code appeals go to the zoning board, or it was under statute that they go to the zoning board unless you have a separate standing local designated building code review board.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have a zoning board, the statute says it becomes the select board. So this is kind of a, already, it's not our zoning ordinance that delegates them that authority, it's the statute, so it kind of.
So, but that little, that was just part of this House bill?
Yep, it was, and it, the part that we do have to think about is the timelines that we
Yeah.
have in our site plan regs. Because.
So we have to go from 2 to 3, 2, 2.5 to 3.7. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yep, that is.
Okay,
But not with conditions. So,
right.
Mountain Village Charter School, that wouldn't have changed
Well,
necessarily.
they've already withdrawn.
Or,
They-
but,
they-
yeah, but just to, for a recent
And,
example.
and in some ways, I'm just thinking about it. I mean, at least right now, in the last few years, we have had like applicants say, like, I need a little bit more time
Yeah.
because of supply chain issues and stuff like that. And some planning boards might say no.
We've been.
And it's kind of let them say no.
We've been generous about granting
Um,
extensions.
And so it seems like a very long time, but I mean, we've been doing this in practice, and it makes sure that everyone does this in practice, as opposed to saying, no, too bad, you have supply chain issues, that's your problem.
I think we've worked with the
Yeah.
community good.
Yeah.
Chad?
Alright, so I'll go over, the next things are very much informational. I don't have a great deal to report on them yet, but they are relevant, so I will quickly mention them. SB 188 allows licensed or certified third parties to certify documents and inspect buildings in compliance with applicable building and other codes. SB 282 amends the building code to allow residential buildings up to 4 stories to have only one stairway under certain conditions. SB 110 provides for expedited alteration of terrain permitting process for certain projects and amends the associated fees. And then HB 92 requires an individual who is a member of both the planning board and zoning board, which we don't have currently but have in the past, to recuse themselves from ZBA decisions which pertain to an item that individual has previously deliberated on as a member of the planning board.
Allows or requires?
I got a question.
Yes.
Okay,
Oh, it requires them to recuse themselves. not
okay,
allows.
Yeah.
so zoning board has no alternates, but let's say,
Hypothetically, yeah.
hypothetically. And a case that went to the planning board now goes to the zoning board. And a zoning board member has to recuse. But by law, the applicant is able to postpone a hearing indefinitely if they don't have a full board.
A full board?
Yeah.
Or a quorum.
No, a full board.
Quorum.
A full board.
Board.
True.
Oh.
The board
Oh.
has to offer that
Oh, they
if
have
an
to-
individual wants to wait, because you need 3 votes, even if there are only 4 members there, it's not a simple majority, it's a majority of the zoning board. So if you have 3 people there, you need 3 votes, not 2 on the zoning board. So you do have a right as an applicant, and the zoning board will always offer, if you don't have a full 5 members or 4 and an alternate, a total of 5 people hearing your case, you do have the right to wait,
Postpone.
basically, until you get a full board.
Wow. So the ZBA would have to appoint, if somebody came to the planning board and heard something and we referred them to the ZBA for a variance or a special exception and there was a planning board member and there was no alternate, they would have to get a new member.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Unless that the applicant, to think about it from their perspective, wouldn't get their decision either, it would extend their timeline as well. So it may be in their interest to be heard by 4 members of the ZBA in that case, but it doesn't.
But if they chose to move ahead and only got 2 yes votes, it can't be reheard either, right?
Right, that is correct. So if
ZBA cannot rehear something they've decided on.
Right, and you cannot, if the zoning board offers it to you, or says that you do not have a full board tonight, would you like to go forward? If you go forward with less than a full board, the decision or that factor cannot be grounds for an appeal. You can't appeal because you only got 2.
Wow.
If you've been offered that choice, and you choose to go forward anyway, it's basically understanding that that's not going to be your grounds for appeal. It can't be. You can still, it doesn't mean you can't appeal a decision for other reasons, but you
That
can't appeal
can't be
for that
grounds
reason.
for it, yep.
It feels like a pet project law.
So this,
Like
so
someone
this
had bad
would-
experience or something.
if someone were a
that's
member
why
of
most
the
of
planning
these are
board
out there.
and the zoning board, and there was a hearing coming up where they knew it was gonna go to the ZBA, they could recuse themselves from the hearing from
Yeah.
the planning board, so they could
Good.
serve on the zoning board.
That's true.
But you'd have to have that foresight to know, like, hey,
go in there.
clearly this application is going to require a variance. I'm going to sit out so that I can sit on the ZBA when it comes in.
Like Three Lakes, right, with their accessory structures.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Exactly. I think that's it. It's a good example. And we did, so I bring this up because we don't have one now, but we have had members in the past who serve on both. I mean, until fairly recently, we had Peter Julia
Julia
on
did.
both boards, and it's not uncommon.
I can imagine appealing a decision. Like, let's say you go to the zoning board and you get a decision you don't like, but you went with a 4-person zoning board because you felt pressured because they couldn't actually provide you with a 5-person zoning board. So you went with it out of like a pressure because it's the only way to do it, and then you don't get the decision you want. That might be grounds for appeal.
Yeah, they had the opportunity.
No, they had the
I wouldn't.
opportunity.
I wouldn't. Yeah, someone can
Otherwise,
appeal under any
you have to wait
grounds, but-
indefinitely.
Well, someone
Good.
someone can appeal a decision of the zone. They can say anything they want in their request for a rehearing, but I don't think that my read of the law leaves any wiggle room for if you feel pressured,
Okay.
to be honest. But
Like, there's like no way to actually get a full board.
I would like to say that Senate Bill 188 that allows licensed or certified third parties to certify documents and inspect buildings is a very good thing for small towns. In my experience, there are many small towns that do not have code enforcement because they can't afford to keep a code enforcement officer on, so they just don't do inspections. Which means they basically don't have zoning, or they don't have building codes in those towns. Like I've been to homes that people have built and seen problems and deficiencies, and the homeowners have said, "Oh, well, who do I sue?" Like, well, did the town give you a building permit? Like, yeah. Like, good luck. Like, because New Hampshire doesn't require licensure of contractors, so you can get Joe Blow who doesn't know what he's doing to build a house, and like, you can sue him, but he can claim, he can file bankruptcy and still be in business tomorrow under a different business name. Like it's this. So this allows small towns to hire. So like the way that towns use assessing services now, you could have building inspection services available that towns could contract out. I think it's actually a good thing.
makes sense. And then
Old Joe Blow.
the last piece here,
Add carpentry.
399 created, and this one is a little more abstract, but is potentially quite impactful. Created a commission to study and recommend potential revisions to the New Hampshire zoning enabling legislation. So there is, as we've discussed, the authority to zone in New Hampshire comes from state law. The reason municipalities can enforce zoning is because state law authorizes them to. This commission will be studying the law that grants the power to zone to towns and potentially recommending revisions to that core grant of power, which
Do we know who's on this commission yet?
I don't have that information.
I suspect they will be appointed.
Jason Sorens. Oh,
I don't know who's going to be on the committee, or if that has been released. I haven't seen it. But there is a structure outlined, I think, in the statute that says not the individuals who will be on the committee, but kind of what the makeup of the committee will be. I can find that if you'd like.
Well,
So that one really is not any direct impact today, but is certainly the implication of future potential further zoning changes to come.
One person from the zoning atlas project.
Come down with cold.
I can see
So
why.
I'm being snarky now.
let's see if it
State is
says.
full of them.
So it says, 4 members of the House of Representatives appointed by the Speaker of the House in consultation with the House Minority Leader, no more than 2 from the same political party. 2 members of the Senate appointed by the President of the Senate in consultation with the Minority Leader of the Senate, no more than 1 from the same political party. 1 designee from the judicial branch appointed by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. I assume that's of New Hampshire. 2 national housing policy experts appointed by the Speaker of the House in consultation with the Minority Leader of the House. 1 member representing municipal governments appointed by the President of the Senate in consultation with the Minority Leader of the Senate. 1 member of the public appointed by the President of the Senate in consultation with the Minority Leader of the Senate. That's
And no
your
planners.
makeup.
one member of the public.
Yeah.
Could be a
And
planner.
no planners.
One member, that's the one.
Yeah.
Who's gonna be the one member of the public?
No.
Wow.
That's the end of my list.
That is a very extensive list. Thank you for pulling that together. I think we're waiting for several of these to be signed, and as they have now been, we can now move forward with what we want to do with them. I think the ones we need to make changes on for town meeting, how does everyone feel? Do we want to see a synopsis from Joseph for each one from what we discussed tonight and have that come back to us to sort of say, this is the rough draft?
I think that's
and
worked well in
work
the
it from
past.
there?
That's worked
Can-
well in the past.
Yeah.
Can we package all of the required changes into one
Giant warrant.
Big, beautiful.
warrant article that says this warrant article, if approved, will update the following elements of zoning in alignment with required
In accordance with the
legislation,
changes.
and just be like this, you know, the town, like even if it's different topics.
Yep, we can do that. We do have to say generally what those changes will be,
Yeah.
so we could
It's
say.
it's gonna be like an
A long
omnibus
one.
zoning
Yeah.
change, but I think it would make sense to
Yeah.
just put it all into one so that it's less controversial.
That works for me.
People are gonna vote for it.
Yeah, no reason you couldn't have them all in one. In the
Not everyone.
question, in the warrant, you will have to say changing ADUs, changing commercial,
Right.
commercial zone, but you can't sort of say it just changes to comply with state law. It has to describe kind of the things that are changing, but it.
The introduction can say all of these changes to zoning are to comply with, required
Recent changes.
updates to the RSAs. These are the changes, ADUs, blah, 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 and.
Yeah.
I love the fact, like, when
And when we're talking about them too, like,
Yeah.
we have our list of
Right.
topics for 2025. This whole list of the state law
Is
changes
one.
because of state law.
I love the fact that whenever we put forward a zoning amendment that's simply to comply with state law, that's going to apply regardless of whether we pass the zoning amendment. There's always like 70 or 80 people who vote against it anyway.
Just cause.
Just because it's a zoning
Just
amendment, so
cause,
like,
yeah.
no.
You know,
Their
just
choice.
having your say. Having your say. I get it.
Joseph, so I think if you do want to start working those together,
Sounds good.
The
we've
omnibus.
had enough discussion tonight with this,
Yeah.
where you probably have a good enough idea of a starting point, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, that's great, and then should be for the next work session that isn't dedicated to housing's master plan chapter, I'll try to have that ready, and the board can take it from there and see what you like, what you don't like.
It'll
and
be
we can-
September.
I do believe so, yep, because the next work session, we do have, I mean, unless the board wanted to try to do both, but we do have Judy Barrett coming in to begin some work on the Housing Master Plan chapter project.
Gotta go.
And she is working on a plan for that.
Gotta shut that thing off.
Have an update soon, I imagine.
Okay.
Right, because we have the August 7th meeting, but we don't have anything for an agenda for that yet regarding what she'll be presenting for us or bringing.
No, I did reach out, but she said that she is kind of hammering out the details, and I imagine we'll be hearing more soon. But September is kind of there was an idea of putting out some kind of survey in the timeline, so I imagine that will be a part of this, and also kicking off the conversation with the public, kicking off some of those engagement things. So certainly if you know folks who are interested and want to hear kind of a discussion about where things are going to go and where community engagement is going to go, I don't think it would be a bad meeting to attend, to hear more about the Housing Master Plan chapter project and learn about what good opportunities for engagement will be following that. Not that it's a community meeting itself, but it will be open to the public, and I do think from the sound of it, it's probably a good one for the public to attend if they're interested.
Any planning board meeting can be a community meeting if the community shows up.
That's true.
True.
Absolutely.
Or if they watch on YouTube.
Or that. Thank you. True. Well, actually not, but that's not really a community meeting. If they watch on Zoom.
True.
Yeah.
They can participate.
So, circling back to short-term rentals from sort of our meeting with the CBA, do we want to make a decision right now to add short-term rentals to our zoning amendment list, or do we want to wait until we meet with Judy again to see where that is sort of going to be baked in and folds into the housing project master plan?
I personally think it would be premature to start making changes that are pretty big in some ways. If they're short-term rentals, they have a big impact without hearing from the public first. And I think that's the point of the housing master plan, is to hear from the public. And short-term rentals are a commercial use really, but they obviously impact housing. So I personally short-term rentals have been around for a long time, and I wouldn't want to rush into it. I don't think it's an emergency. I personally just want to wait and get feedback from the public before making any decisions.
They've been in existence long before VRBO and Airbnb used to call
Yeah.
it a agency.
Yeah.
Rent
Right.
a house for a week.
Yeah.
In your area. Yeah. Okay. Is everyone in consensus with that? To feel any differently?
Yeah.
Or?
Yes.
Okay. Do we want to delve into any of the priority projects for this year's zoning amendments? For example, Tenny Mountain overlay. It is 9 o'clock. Do we feel like we want to complete for the night? Where does everyone sit on this?
I would move that we put this on the agenda for the next meeting. I think we've done a good amount tonight. I think any work we do on this might be strained. I think the work we've done on these topics in the past has been strained, and I don't think we've moved forward adequately. It's July, we have a couple months to really focus on this.
I would also add to that I actually feel pretty confident with most of what we have down at this point.
I agree.
I agree, yeah.
And I think there might be some tweaking, but I don't really see any huge changes on
the Tenny Mountain?
based on our discussions that I've heard. I don't know.
The one thing I've thought of with like the Tenny Mountain overlay district, I don't know where it folds in, if we already have it folded in, is environmental impact on a grand scheme,
But we have to do that anyway, I think.
And that's what I'm sort of was like wondering, but we can
We can add extra
save
regulations
for
to that.
delving this into
Yeah.
it. If we want to delve into it tonight, or save it for.
If you want to talk more about that, I would like to do it later.
Okay. And I think that's what my question was.
Yeah, I don't mind talking about those again, but I think we've had our share of late meetings. I'm not sure that
Yeah.
there's anything so pressing that we need to be late tonight.
I seconded that motion.
Oh, you
The
did?
motion on
He
the
did.
floor.
I did not.
He did. He
I'm
went-
sorry, Neil. I did
We're
not.
I don't
discussing
think it
the
was
motion.
officially.
We're discussing the motion.
I didn't either. Well, if there's no further discussion, we have a motion in a second. What was the motion for? I don't
It
know.
was
To-
it's not really a motion.
It was
He's
a
been
motion
he's
to-
been here too long already.
I'll move to adjourn?
No, I.
No.
No. Not
We
quite
have a
yet.
motion
Not
on the
quite yet.
floor.
I think it was.
What is
Economic
it?
Development Committee membership.
That's the last thing.
Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
We did
I
have a motion in a
will,
second.
we have a motion on the floor, so my move to adjourn is not valid, but the motion was to put these items off.
We had
We're
another,
satisfied
we had
for
a,
tonight.
Neil made another motion.
Okay. Well, moving on to the Economic Development Committee membership discussion. Joseph, do you want to fire us off on this one?
Absolutely. So the select board at, not this most recent meeting, but at a previous meeting, as well as myself and Scott had a conversation about kicking off this new renewed economic development committee effort. And I did mention this, I believe, at a previous meeting, but it's more fully formed now. The select board has, and perhaps you've seen this in the newsletter or on the website, the select board has put out a call. They're officially seeking members for the Economic Development Committee. This is going to be a subcommittee of the select board comprised of 2 planning board members, 2 select board members, and 3 members of the public. So essentially, the question to the planning board is who on the planning board would like to fill those planning board spots. The purpose of the committee, is still early. We're still in the early stages of it, but certainly there's been a lot of interest on the select board end, and there's been a lot of support for this effort. And I think, from a planning board perspective, the town's master plan has an entire section on economic development, set many recommendations, and I think the exercise that we did with the housing recommendations of the master plan with Judy, revisiting those. It's been 7-8 years since those goals were adopted. How do we feel about the economic development recommendations in the master plan? Are they spot on? Still keep working on them? Are they all accomplished? Or are there things we think we might be missing something here? And I think starting at the beginning, is really going to be key, as well as kind of, engaging in a process that is starting with feedback from the community as well, business community, business leaders, residents, and other folks, because there are a lot of resources for economic development in this state and even in this region. I think it's wise to avoid the risk of rushing in and creating some new redundant system when there's already a service being provided by Grafton County Regional Development or the State Department of Business and Economic Affairs or one of these other many organizations, the Small Business Administration, New Hampshire Life Sciences, the New Hampshire Tech Alliance. I mean, part of this might be building bridges. But all that being said, my sense of the read I got from the select board, and I think what seems to make sense from some of the conversations we've had is, start at the ground level and see where the community, the business community, and the master plan suggest going. And perhaps there's even an opportunity to tie in work of this Economic Development Committee to work that the planning board's discussed with a more comprehensive master plan revision in the near future, because that will include, of course, updating the economic development section, and having a group that's thinking about that could be quite valuable.
Potentially the village commercial as well.
Definitely.
May I ask a question about the committee and typically a standing committee, board, commission, etc., is made up of town residents. Subcommittees can sometimes be made up, like the HOP committee, of non-residents who are stakeholders in some way and have an important voice.
Yes.
Like non-resident business owners.
Exactly. Select board member, or Joseph, do you know what the guidelines are for this committee?
So here's what I'll say. There's nothing in the text of the committee charter that says you must be a registered voter of Plymouth, though I do think that the select board, my sense was that the select board felt that it was important to hear from residents, and that there might be the select board is ultimately going to appoint those members of the public, and they're going to look at what those people can bring to the committee, and I think that will be an important factor, but it's not explicitly written that you are 100% excluded if you're not a resident.
Okay.
That would be up to the select board to decide.
Interesting.
Thank you.
But I mean, at this time, we're looking for 2 planning board members to be
Correct.
part of the committee, right?
Absolutely. And those are, I will say, the structure of this subcommittee, under the structure of this subcommittee, the planning board representatives will effectively be ex officio, so in the same capacity that Phil, as a select board member, is present on the planning board by virtue of his membership on the select board and essentially represents the select board. These members will be actually appointed by the planning board, not appointed by the select board to the subcommittee.
So as ex officio members, is it going to be one of the 3 appointed members then by the select board who is going to be the chair of this committee?
No. So the structure would have the select board representative be the chair, and
Okay.
one of the select board representatives chair the committee, since it is a subcommittee of the
Okay.
select board and the planning board. One of those 2 representatives would be the vice chair.
Vice chair.
Oh, interesting.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Do you
What is
know-
their meeting
Yeah,
deadline?
what- yeah, it was-
Frequency and,
Yeah,
That's
so
fine.
that is to be determined. That's ultimately gonna be up to the select board as well. I think generally, these committees meet once a month. I mean, that's the typical frequency, but during a busy season, when you have a big project, they might meet bi-monthly. I mean, there's nothing, that was not established as a part of sort of the charter of the committee. I think the sense was, once we know, once we have a sense of who's interested, how many people are interested in the committee, we would create basically schedule a meeting from there.
I would also add that, I mean, if there's sometimes like a heavy lift, like the planning board did with the HOP grant, you sometimes form a separate steering committee to say, you know, you guys are going to be meeting like every week and like digging way into this, because otherwise, like everybody on the committee would just quit because they couldn't do it. So sometimes for those heavier lifts, you might even want to form like a steering committee or something.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But that would be up to the board to, or a
What's the
committee
whole
that.
idea with this, what you're talking about? I mean, what is another subcommittee to the planning board or something? Is that what it would be, or?
It's a subcommittee of the select board, but
Select board?
would have members of the planning board and members of the public.
Yep, members of the
What's the,
select.
what's the concept of having it for, just for another?
Economic development.
Yep, promoting economic development. So that's a very broad term. So that could include things to promote business expansion in the community. And there are a lot of tools you can do to promote, tools you can use as a town to promote business development, but also thinking about how that relates to the master plan, how the town would like to see the community grow from an economic perspective, from a business perspective, whether there are tools that the town could use or resources that the town could make available.
If there are barriers.
It might go beyond typical planning, and it might get into tax policy. It might,
Absolutely.
one of the topics might be like, should we consider offering a 5-year, staged property tax increase for new businesses or something like that.
Or a TIF district.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think
It
that's,
it may go beyond typical planning tools.
absolutely. I totally agree. And I think once you have a sense of where the business community, the public wants to go, I think this committee will be an important part of following through with some of the recommendations. And that could be, yeah, like you said, could be a TIF district, could be ERZ, Economic Revitalization Zone, it could be a 162K revitalization district, or it could be subtle, small changes to branding and marketing for the town, or infrastructure to support economic development in a specific area.
Or if there are a bunch of things that need to be coordinated that are not all land use directly related, like Franklin going to Whitewater route,
Yeah.
or Plymouth maybe going with, Tenny Mountain, and other things need to be coordinated outside of land use. This provides oversight and coordination of those efforts.
I think, the town of Plymouth we could market ourselves as like the hub for outdoor recreation. Like there's mountain biking, there's skiing, there's hiking, like this can be like.
Wait, what was the thing we adopted like 10 years ago? What was it?
Destination
Gateway
for
to the White
environmental
Mountains.
studies and
No,
ecotourism.
that was like 100 years ago.
Center for Environmental Studies and Ecotourism.
No, that's the one. Yeah.
Ecotourism.
Gateway to the White Mountains was
Adopted.
like 1850.
It was adopted by town meeting.
Yeah.
Who's interested in this economic development committee?
I am.
I would be.
1, 2, 3, perfect.
Right.
Well, we need two,
And
right?
we only need 2,
We
let's.
don't need to.
So you guys fight it out.
We have plenty of, I'm happy we have plenty of interest.
I'm happy to sit back.
Well, you're a
can't.
select board member anyway.
I know, but it's a subcommittee of the select board. It's not gonna be all the select board members.
No, but I mean, like, you wouldn't even be
Oh, right.
appointed by the
Yeah.
planning board.
Good point. It has to be one of the 6.
Yes.
True. Good point.
You could do it from select board side. But yeah, but not from the planning board side. I don't know, do we need to decide tonight, or?
Yeah.
Do you need us to- I'm glad we have 3 people interested.
Candidates, yeah.
Yeah, that
3
would-
interested candidates.
So the select board did ask for, or at least the call that was put out to the community for members of the public did ask for them to respond by the middle of next week.
Oh.
But the select board will probably not be discussing this at their July 28th meeting, but at their subsequent meeting, which is, I think, the 11th. So theoretically,
August.
of August, yep. So I do believe that might leave another planning board meeting in between now and when they're going to sort of formally revisit this. But that could be subject to change. I don't set their agenda, but that's my understanding of the agendas that
Your call,
happen
Chair.
relate to me.
Phil, what would you like to see? Would you like to see?
I think it'd be nice to have 2 nominees tonight. But at the same time, with 3 interested parties, I mean, I also feel like I shouldn't be the one nominating people.
If
to
we have some time, I can
Do
put
you guys wanna
I can put
thumb
I can put a
wrestle?
long sign out and get ready for this.
rock, paper, scissors. That's 2 out of 3.
We
I
could
don't
do
know
it
how
that
we'll
way.
determine that. I think all 3 of you are well qualified.
I think all 3 of you would be well qualified and would all bring unique
Yeah.
perspectives to the Economic Development Committee.
I served as industrial agent for the town for 6 years, and my first achievement was getting the first McDonald's into Plymouth. That was tough because Main Street was against it.
I bet they were.
Yeah.
Well, I would nominate Molly,
Oh.
and the 2 guys can fight it out.
Yeah.
Sign on nominations.
I am. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So there are actually 4 of you that are interested.
No, it was
3 of us.
Just
1,
3.
2, 3.
Oh, I thought Matt was too.
I left my hand down. If no one was, if one
Okay.
hand went up, I would have been right there. But they
So,
went in
so we
order.
really have like
Molly,
4
I don't-
candidates.
I don't
So
need
you're
it.
busy enough with CIP.
Motion.
No, I don't need to
second.
do it.
What's that?
You do have the second for your motion, though, so
Okay.
that is a live motion.
Well, we have a live motion on the floor.
I'm
Nominate
just
Molly.
gonna let you 2 do it. I'm not gonna,
You sure do?
yeah. I'm
So
on the,
I'll
I'm on the,
second-
Energy Commission and the
Right.
Conservation
Oh,
Commission.
wow.
God.
Yeah.
And the
I'm
planning
on
board.
You're busy. You're
I'm on
already
the-
busy.
The Pemmy River Local Advisory Committee, and I think I'm still on the Lakes Region Planning Commission.
Yeah, and
You are, yeah.
you have a lot
So-
to do.
Yeah, I got enough to do.
What's one more?
And you haven't been to the Lakes Region Planning Commission meeting?
Not lately.
No, I was looking at, because I read them.
Yeah.
A friend of mine is on that as well, and
Yeah.
so
Well,
he comes in
Bru-
frequently and we read
Bill
them.
Bolton is on the executive committee.
Yeah,
Well, that makes me feel better
So-
because you're
No,
you're
that's
doing a
all
lot.
Yeah, I
So
got enough to do.
I'll second Molly.
It's just I really,
He's already seconded.
Yeah, it was already.
Okay, all right. Somebody's been seconded.
I'm just really interested in seeing the town. I wanna see the tax rate come down.
I agree.
What, don't you?
I
You?
just don't know
Well,
if I can.
We all
need-
do.
We need
We all do.
commercial development.
We need increases in the value of property in town.
And I do think it's
with-
important.
without increases in service, but I think the trend is that services tend, residents tend to continue to demand more services, which is part of the numerator going up.
Okay, well, let's not get too deep into weeds, but yes.
Yeah, it's both.
Nonprofits.
enough.
Yeah, all of the above.
So let's.
We have a motion
on
and a
the
second to nominate Molly
Okay, I have no more discussion.
to the Economic Development Committee. If there's no further discussion, all in favor?
I
Do I vote for myself? Aye.
You can.
Abstain.
Sure.
If you
Abstain.
want to.
doesn't really
I
matter.
think historically
It's already
it's
done.
happened.
You're
Abstain.
You're on.
I'm gonna
You're on.
abstain.
Whether you like it or not.
And you're
Thank
gonna
you.
step down, you don't wanna do it?
I thought John wanted to do it.
I'm happy to do it.
So we need a motion for
Yeah.
John?
Make a motion for John.
Yeah.
I'll second it.
Brad second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain, opposed, and abstentions.
Oh, I didn't vote for myself. Okay, I'll say an aye. I'm an aye as
Oh,
well.
wow.
Congratulations.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you both for volunteering.
Yeah.
I look forward to the good work that's gonna come out of this, and hopefully the work that comes out of this committee will be the foundation for updates to the
Master plan, yeah.
Mhm. And beyond.
Yeah.
Chair, do we have any other business?
Do we have any updates from the Lakes Region Planning Commission? Anything
No,
else?
we had our annual meeting. I'm not sure if we have had a meeting since then, but we had our annual meeting, which is like a dinner and awards are given out. And so we gave out lots of awards this year. We had lots of nominees that were really good. And I was on the awards committee. And so we gave out a whole bunch of really interesting awards through interesting projects. And I'm not going to go through all of them right now, but. And otherwise, that's like basically wraps us up for the summer, and we'll start meeting again in the fall.
Okay.
And yeah, and so there's really not too much to report.
All right. We'll hear again from you in the fall. We look forward to it. No public comments from online or in person, as there are no people from the public here.
I should probably just say one thing. CIP met today for the first time.
Wow.
Thank you.
And we just got together to go over the happenings and when everything was going to start beginning. And we just went over what's basically was passed from last year. And they've started the process, and we probably will get back together. They're gonna give Joseph updates as they move along in the budget process. And he will keep me informed, and I will keep you guys informed, and we will meet probably the beginning of October.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Welcome.
Any other comments or updates anyone needs to make us aware of?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
You guys better watch it. One of these days.